Tesla.
Going on now at the White House Tesla Auto Mall. It's the biggest sale of the year.
Very safe, it's very strong, heavy, it's all steel, stainless steel.
Gage!
Come on down to Pennsylvania Avenue just off Route 29 to get our best deal ever on a brand new Tesla.
I want to make a good deal here. They have one, which is $35,000, which is pretty low.
Get a Model 1 with a different panel and everything's computer.
This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer.
Ah, gay!
So don't waste your time going to those other Tesla dealerships with riots and flaming cyber trucks. You gotta come down to White House Tesla Auto Mall.
I love Tesla.
You gotta come down to White House Tesla Auto Mall.
This is really amazing.
Tesla.
Gay, totally gay, Liberace gay.
This is the president.
Hey, what's up?
Well, crawling out of the woodwork to try and get me back now that I'm a big cheese.
No, I'm calling because people want you to bomb Denmark.
Who wants me to bomb Denmark?
Lots of people, because it's like going to ruin their freedom of speech or something.
Mr. Slave, this is all very complicated diplomatic stuff, okay? You can't just go bombing other countries.
Oh, Jesus Christ, you're such a little bitch.
Oh, I'm a bitch, huh? I happen to be president, bitch.
You're a little bitch, President. You're too scared to bomb anybody.
I'm not scared. My advisors have told me that
you're scared. Just do what your little advisors tell you to do.
If I decide a military strike on Denmark is warranted, then I will...
You don't have the balls to bomb them, pussy.
Okay. You think so, huh? Well, watch this, you asshole. Bomb Denmark!
Welcome to The Independent Review, a weekly podcast where we bring you the latest from the world of independent journalism.
Run! Escape! Run! Escape! Run! Fight! Run! Escape! What would Prime Boy Tano do if he was here right now? He'd make a plan and he'd follow through. That's what Prime Boy Tano do. Run! Escape! Run! Fight! When Prime Boy Tano was in the Olympics skating for the gold, he did 2 South cows and a triple Lutz wearing a blindfold. When Prime Boy Tano was in the Alps fighting grizzly bears, he used his magical fire breath and saved the maidens fair. Run! Escape! Run! So what would Prime Boy Tano do if he was here today? I'm sure he'd kick an arse or two. That's what Prime Boy Tano do. Run! Escape! Run! When Prime Boy Tano traveled through time to the year 3010, he fought the evil robot king and saved us all again. And when Prime Boy Tano built the pyramids, he beat up Kublai Khan. Cause Prime Boy Tano doesn't take shit from anybody. No, Brian, those chicken wings are really spicy. Don't eat those.
You know, Peter, I think as you get older, you have to practice more, and that's the only thing that I rely on. I have to be completely prepared to do a show like this, whether it's a competition or a show. I have to do repetition, and it's harder on your body as you get older, but that's a necessity for me too. We're rebels, you know, we're in our 30s and we're rebellious, so we just gotta be our own folks.
Okay, I believe that.
Prime Boy Tano was born on the planet of Krylock. He came to Earth to save us all from war and death and stuff. Hidey-do-dee-hidey-lay, Prime Boy Tano's here. So round up all your lasses and tell them to have no fear. Take them over here, my honey, and we're gonna take off my pants. And I'm gonna make dirty love to you, cause that's what Prime Boy Tano do. Cause that's what Prime Boy Tano do.
A new look for Brian Boitano, or should I say an old look?
Welcome to the Independent Review Live on Rumble, Odyssey, Rockfin, and the Indie News Twata channel. Let's jump to this first clip with Steve Poikonen and his guest James Corbett.
The founder of the Corbett Report and the author of the new book Reportage, James Corbett. Good morning.
Good morning, indeed. AM Wake Up, indeed. Steve, thanks for having me back on, and thank you for your kind words. Those are the most gratifying words I can ever receive, because all I was trying to do when I stumbled down the rabbit hole back in 2006 was try to find a more accurate map of reality. And I would like to think I've at least got a more accurate map of reality than I did 20 years ago. And so if I can help that understanding along in anyone else, that's what I'm here for.
Well, the book is definitely a testament to that, and it's like you know, lay yourself bare right in the introduction, talking about, you know, I would tell you to write Parliament. I would tell you, you know, and this, that, and now, you know, to the point where you are and where I am, and I think most of the audience is, it's been a hell of a journey. And it is an incredible representation of your body of work over the last 15 years.
Thank you for that. Yes, I would like to think so. And yeah, for people who don't know, yeah, the new book, Reportage, pronounce it the fancy French way, please. Reportage, Essays on the New World Order, is a book that was 15 years in the writing. I literally started it in 2009 and literally finished it just last summer. So that's crazy. But one of the interesting things about it is, and I consciously didn't, I knew that there were going to be essays in here that I literally started some of them in 2009. And I thought, well, I've obviously changed perspectives, but I wanted to preserve some of that journey in this book. So some of the essays, I think, reflect some of my older understanding, my older map of reality that has since been updated and upgraded. But I think that part of that, the journey of this book, is the development of those ideas towards where I am now. And I think that where I am now is well reflected in this book, with obviously the reality that, yes, writing to your member of parliament or vote third party guys is probably not the ultimate solution to the top down oligarchy that we are living under right now.
Well, no, I agree with that. And just, you know, for funsies, every year or every election year, I write in Cynthia McKinney as a protest vote, because I recall very clearly back in 2008 when I actually did vote for Cynthia McKinney because I thought it might help, being called a racist because I didn't vote for Barack Obama and I voted for some Irish chick named Cynthia McKinney. And I'm like, have you taken 5 seconds? You know, and at that point I was like, it's a wash. Never mind. I give up. But no, that's
I remember
that
those days
actually
too.
happened.
Yeah, I'm Canadian, so I couldn't have voted for Cynthia if I could have, but she wasn't a bad choice at the time if you're going to be a statist, I guess.
Right. But before we really get into the nuts and bolts of the book, man, I wanted to ask you what your thoughts were about being deplatformed from Rockfin.
Oh, have I been deplatformed?
Yeah, you have.
Oh,
You've
okay.
been zeroed out. You have zero. They were on a rampage over the last couple of weeks of just axing all kinds of people.
Okay.
So if you were unaware of that, even better.
I was. All I noticed was that the uploads, because I use Content Safe, and they were uploading to all my platforms, and I noticed that the Rockfin didn't seem to be going anymore, and I was gonna get on Content Safe's case about it, and but then I realized, you know what? I have never once, not once, in all the time I have ever been doing this, received even one email from even one person ever saying, why aren't you on Rockfin? Or I didn't see your video on Rockfin. Never once. So that's probably a good indication. I don't think people, I had a few hundred views according to their count, but I never heard from anyone. So I'm not sure it's a big loss.
They were taking the axe to a whole bunch of channels under the guise of, if you're putting out free content, we really don't want you here.
Yeah. All right.
We only want, you know, premium content. And I only put out
me too,
free content.
Yeah, exactly.
And I told him that,
I mean, I get it. Look, I'm not even going to rag on that they have their incentive, and me as a content creator, I have my incentive, and those incentives don't always align. I get it. Whatever. They're going to do what they're going to do. It was nice not knowing you.
It seems like a deliberate tanking of the platform. And if if you were to go and follow every content creator over any given month, all of the top videos are me and Richard Grove and Ryan Cristian, who all put out free content.
Yep.
So they haven't kicked us off the platform yet. Because we're responsible for an overwhelming percentage of their views.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird. It's weird. they changed their subscription model. They haven't done a damn thing to make their chat better or their mobile app
Right.
better. It's, you know.
Well, look, this is the reason why my whole philosophy is I ain't putting all my eggs in any one basket. Thank you very much. I think anyone who didn't learn that lesson from the GooTube days didn't learn anything at all. And that's why I've been backing up my videos on my server since 2011. I think my pre-2011 videos, I wasn't actually posting them to my website. But since then, every single video is up on my website for download directly. And people can always get it there, no matter what platform I am platformed or deplatformed on.
And that's the way you got to do it. It's RSS feeds, you know, personal server, have your own website, do all that. I'm very pleased that we're in the middle of, you know, a conversation and development with the Odyssey dudes for the Independent Media Alliance website, and to have that hosted there along with everything else. I'm very pleased that my good friend Charlie Robinson is now editor of Activist Post, and he's, you know, highlighting your work, my work. There's a whole IMA section for it. We may have found some more workarounds, James. We may have.
I hope so. And that's the point. It's something I always stress in my solutions related work is that everyone's always looking for the golden solution, the silver bullet that will work always for all time in all situations. I prefer to just go with whatever is working, and we will build that out and hopefully make something from there. But, you know, we just got to keep moving forward.
No, I couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more. That's kind of the impetus behind the like in-person events that we're throwing with the Third Eye Carnival. It's just, you know, it's about getting people together in real time, disconnected completely from your machine, you know, engaging in each other's company face to face, understanding that you're not alone, and ultimately trying to create the culture that we want to live in instead of the culture that we've been forced to react to, that we didn't consent to, that we would never consent to.
That's it. That's the name of the game. Because as I am about to reveal in my next Solutions Watch, which will be out shortly, I think the creation of parallel societies is the key. In a sense, that's perhaps what all of my solutions related work is aimed at. It's just different facets of that problem. But yes, we need to create parallel societies that reflect our values and what we want. And it's not even a question of fighting against the man and fighting back against the... No, it's about creating something that we want, that will, by its sheer beauty and radiance and wonderful human vitality, will attract others. We don't have to get on our, on the battlefield and start shooting at some enemy. What we need to do is create what we want and bring it into reality, and others will be attracted to that.
I've always been a lead by example or you're doomed to follow guy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And with that in mind, let's get into the book a little bit, because it really does highlight a 15-year journey throughout, all of your different observations, everything you discovered, everything you researched, the various different rabbit holes that you fell down. We got somebody in the chat here saying that he's already halfway through the book. And yeah, I don't know, walk us through it a little bit, and then we can highlight a couple of different essays, because they really are, they're fantastic.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I'm glad that you see it that way, because yes, this is reflective, I think, of not all of my work, I suppose, but I think it's a pretty good representative sample of some of the subjects that I've been covering. And I think that all together, they add up to that question of what is the New World Order anyway? I specifically and consciously did not define that term in this book, because I think that the essays themselves are parts of the definition of what that is. What am I talking about? But yeah, it's 9/11, obviously, an incredibly important foundational issue, the one that sent me down the rabbit hole, as I point out in my introductory essay. And it's history. For example, the history of eugenics, or the hidden history of the environmental movement, and who's really behind that movement and what's really motivating them. It isn't love for Mother Nature so much as it is love for their own kind. and love for their own family in the most literal sense in a lot of cases. I talk about, for example, the biotech billionaires and GMO doomsday, talking about obviously the GMO issue and the very real health and scientific problems around that issue, but also where that is leading us and why they are building a seed vault in the Arctic, the frozen Arctic tundra, as a backup for Mother Nature. Why would we need that, guys? What kind of disaster are you planning for? I talk about the political issues. I talk about up-down politics, expanding people's conception of what politics is, because as we know, there is left and there is right, there is Coke and there is Pepsi, there is blue and there is red, and you are one of those teams, and that defines the entire political universe, and nothing else is worth looking. No, I try to talk about a different way that we can conceptualize what politics is and how it works. I talk about how to really defeat globalism, because of course, most people's first immediate answer is, yeah, we defeat globalism with nationalism. But I think that's a false dichotomy that leads us in the wrong direction. So I expand on that. Talk about the real meaning of independence. I talk about geopolitics, escaping the grand chessboard, because as we all know, of course, Zbigniew Brzezinski, for example, writing in the 90s about the grand chessboard and how the next major war is going to occur in the Eurasian heartland. And then 2001 comes along and we have to go into Afghanistan, et cetera, et cetera. So it covers a lot of ground, but I like to say, I don't think people who are familiar with my work will be surprised by the content of this. I think that this is content that I tend to cover, but I think that I do it in the type of detail you can only do in a book, because it's different than what you can do in a podcast or in a conversation like this one.
No, you're absolutely right. And there's sometimes where, I mean, for example, like the difference between One Nation Under Blackmail, right? Whitney's books, where it's so information dense that it would take, 30 podcasts or something like that in order to get through it. And you would have to keep up with each and every one. With the way that you've laid this out, it's very straightforward. It is very easy to digest, and I think that if you're kind of at the level to where you're even questioning, not maybe fully all the way into the voluntarist camp or the agorist camp or anything like that, but you're still like 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the system, it's something that you can pick up. You can just pick any different one. You don't have to read it in order. And you can grab something that catches your attention, and then you have access to a whole bunch of information, because you're a guy who will source absolutely everything from the most primary sources as humanly possible. And that's something that I've always really respected, and try to do, in my own right when we do the show every day.
Thank you for saying that, specifically because I would like this book to be an emissary of the type of things that I'm interested in, the type of Corbett Report work, but the emissary to the wider world. That is to say, not necessarily people who have any familiarity with my work or in any way even thinking along my lines. I would like this to introduce people to some of these ideas, like the voluntarist idea, like spontaneous order. Yes, we all want law and order can only be imposed from top down by a strong authoritarian system. That's the only way order can. Well, actually, have you ever heard of this thing called? And so I would like this to be, at the very least, the sort of splinter that can get into people's minds and get them at least thinking along a different path. And I have a specific example of that. So, for example, in my Bilderberg essay in this edition, that was an essay I worked on for many years and wrote, rewrote. I was working with my editor, Susan, in the US. We were working back and forth on it, rewriting it, revising it, getting it right into shape. And it was when I finally sent all of the final essays to my publisher, and my publisher was reading through it. And he said, you know what, the Bilderberg essay, you got to rewrite that. You got to frame it differently, because the way I had framed it originally, I was talking about it at like an in-group, out-group thing. Like, okay, you guys, you know about Bilderberg, but the average person on the street doesn't know about Bilderberg. And how do you, and he's like, no. This essay isn't for your in-group. This is for everyone. This is for the person on the street who's never heard of the Bilderberg group. And you don't want to be immediately putting them into some out-group category. Hey, guys, you don't know about Bilderberg. Oh, you're so silly. No, this is, hey, guys, have you ever heard of Bilderberg? If not, here's what it is, and here's why we should be opposed to it. So once that penny dropped, I'm like, oh yeah, I do need to rewrite that. So I did want this to be that sort of introduction for people who may have never heard of it. And even if you have heard of it, I think, as you say, there's enough interesting details and nuggets and end notes in here, several hundred of them, to keep people occupied for a long time. There's a lot of receipts in here for people who are looking for the deep dive.
Off the top of your head, do you have a rough estimate of endnotes for the book?
So my publisher says there's something like 1,700 plus hyperlinks in the EPUB, but I think that counts, like the end note number 3, and you click on number 3 and it takes you to the end. So I think it's double counting some of them. Anyway, I would say there's at least several hundred end notes here. And for example, some of the big essays like the Biotech Billionaires essay or the Escaping the Grand Chessboard essay, I think they both have over 100 end notes each. So that's just 2 essays out of 20.
Let's talk about the biotech future that's being, kind of implemented. Almost like boldly, but at the same time, almost surreptitiously. Donald Trump brings out Sam Altman and Larry Ellison and dude from SoftBank and says we're going to invest $500 billion in AI generated mRNA, cancer therapy shots. And then they don't say a freaking word about it since. They haven't uttered a word. But this is now the future is now. This is the world that we live in, and it's getting into our food. I have a good friend who comes on routinely named Texas Slim, who started something called the Beef Initiative with a one-man obsession of reintroducing everyone to their local rancher. So that they can have a handshake relationship with the people that produce their food. Whatever you can't produce in your own yard, you should know by name the people that are producing your food. And that's been his mission for the last 5 years. He's done incredible with it. But I mean, outside of that, because he won't work with ranchers who, vaccinate or give hormone therapy or anything like that, what do you see are pathways for people to circumvent this sort of biotech future?
Excellent question. Incredibly important question, because as you point out there, this goes right to the heart of the transhuman agenda, which is part of transitioning us away from what it means to be authentic, organic, original substrate humans into whatever type of cyborgian, genetically modified creatures we're going to become if we follow along this path. I know that sounds crazy to people who've never heard it before, but that's only because they are not aware of the very real steps that are being taken along that path. And obviously, as you point out, the most dramatic example in recent years has been the introduction of the mRNA vaccines, now the replicon self-amplifying mRNA vaccines, which have just been rolled out here in Japan, the DNA vaccines and other things that are being worked on, which of course are vaccines in name only and are really genetic interventions that are really starting to at least call into question, well, what does it mean to be human? Because as we go down this road, eventually, of course, we'll have the everything vaccine that will be this thing that they put in your body that they'll be able to radio remote control into self-assembling whatever protein Big Pharma decides they need to put in your body tomorrow. Again, sounds outlandish to people who aren't following the development of this technology. So the Biotech Billionaires essay in particular focuses on one aspect of this, which is the genetic modification of the food supply, because I think that's probably the way that people can understand this agenda the most obviously, because you are what you eat, right? So what does it mean if you are eating genetically modified monstrosities that don't really exist in nature that we have just created in a laboratory? And what does it mean that those genetically modified monstrosities are controlled, created, patented, and sold by a handful of monopolistic or at least oligopolistic corporations? And we saw the development, the cartelization of the food industry over the course of the past century with the forming of the seed cartels that increasingly control more and more of the world's crops by simply providing the seeds and selling and sort of cartelizing that entire industry. But that evolved into the biotech industry. So the old ABCD, whatever it is, Cargill and Archer, Daniels, Midlands, and whoever, the sort of the seed cartel, that became the biotech cartel, which is now, well, it was, of course, Monsanto. It's now Bayer, BASF. You know, the handful of corporations that are doing these genetic modifications have incredible control over the food supply already. And of course, as you point out, it's going to get more and more crazy from here. As for example, I covered in a recent documentary that I did on the future of food. Yeah, it's going to get crazy. 3D printed lab meat, synthetic gunk that will be controlled, again, by a handful of corporations created in laboratories. But that'll be much better for the environment than just, I don't know, accessing nature and reaping the abundance of the earth. No. We have to go to laboratories and guys in white lab coats who are going to be scientifically engineering your daily protein intake or whatever nonsense. Obviously, craziness. So the question is, what do we do about that? And at the end of the Biotech Billionaires essay, that's all about the question of, okay, what do we do about this? Because ultimately, the buck stops at our dinner plate. At least for the time being, you can still have some say over what it is you are eating or not eating. And yes, that choice is going to be circumscribed by your location, your resources, your ability to access. But I'd like to think that most people still at least have the ability, if not to go 100% off of the processed engineered gunk that is passing for food these days, at least to get more off of that control grid and become more acquainted, for example, with your local producers. So one example that I point to in the essay is an example that I think is incredibly instructive that happened a couple of decades ago with regards to bovine growth hormone and how it was being used to create super milk producing dairy cows that would produce so much more milk for the dairy industry. Yay. Except for the fact that, oh, by the way, it was, of course, creating these essentially super cows that would get all of these super infections because they were producing so much milk, etc. And there was definite health issues involved with this. So there was, after some notoriety and some activists working to get the information out about this, including a Fox News investigative team. They started this new Fox News investigative report with these crack reporters. And one of the first stories they covered was this bovine growth hormone problem, which immediately got them canceled and their whole investigative team scrapped. I wonder why. But it did result in a widespread movement of people actively boycotting the consumption of bovine growth hormone. And wouldn't you know it, corporation after corporation, Walmart and Kroger's and whatever, all of these major supermarkets and retailers started going, oh, okay. So they started advertising, we don't buy BGH milk, no more BGH milk. And it was a people's movement that essentially got that taken off of the shelves. Because again, we do have some say over what goes into our mouths or what does not go into our mouths. And we can make our presence and our opinions felt on the corporate level. We've seen this in recent years with the boycotts and boycotts with regards to the DEI woke stuff. Well, that works as well on the food industry. And I'd like to think people will start thinking a little bit more carefully about the GMO engineered laboratory meat gunk substitute nonsense that's being shoved at us by people like Bill Gates. And at the very least, don't buy it. Don't buy it. Don't feed the corporate bottom line on this. I know they're going to engineer it to make it harder and harder, but that's exactly why we need to be building out those community infrastructure, getting to know your local producers so that we have a chance of giving our middle finger to the industry and saying, we don't need your crap. We've already got the abundance of the earth.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, and I'm fortunate. Where I live in California, there are a lot of local ranchers and local producers, a lot of organic farms and things like that. I have a personal relationship with the butcher at our local market, totally independently owned. They only source from local ranches that don't shoot up their cows and shoot up their chickens and that kind of stuff. I know not everybody has that opportunity or option, but if you're able to, the biggest hurdle for most people is the price point. And if you're not used to eating good food, then you eat more bad food. When you eat good food, you typically eat significantly less because it does so much more for you, and the cost is mitigated or offset in the long term. Like, it might hurt.
And you know what? Let's address that point specifically for the people who don't have access to a nice community organic infrastructure of suppliers and growers and producers in their area. Of course, yeah, absolutely. I understand some people are going to be in a less favorable position to access that market. But shouldn't that actually be part of a wake up experience? Like, hey,
yeah,
I live in a place where I don't have access to any of that. Maybe I should start structuring my life so I can live in a place where I do have access to that kind of thing. Maybe it is worth the time, effort, investment of resources and energy and money and whatever else is required to put myself in a position where I can access the things that I want, and hopefully for my family, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that goes across the board. Think about all of the people who over the course of the scamdemic, well, I had to take the shot because, I had to travel, or I had to do it for my job, or whatever the case. We've all heard. I've never heard from anyone who said, yes, I absolutely wanted to take the shot. I've heard from a lot of people who said, well, I kind of had to. Well, if you kind of had to in that particular moment, again, isn't that the wake up call of, hey, maybe I should start structuring and organizing my life so that I don't have to put myself in a position of fealty to a system that will force inject me with something that I don't want in order to just put food on my family's table. Maybe there's a better way of structuring my life. And I'd like to think that rather than taking this as the great, oh, well, nothing I can do, it's actually a nice big kick up the butt for people who are in a position where they can't resist these types of pressures. Because guess what? It's going to get worse. As bad as the scamdemic was, that sort of thing is going to get worse unless you are in a position to give the middle finger to those who are trying to steward over you in your life.
100%. And to illustrate this, I brought up beefmaps.com, which is, Texas Slim's Beef Initiative. These are all of the independent, non-GMO, non-bovine growth hormone, non-vaccinated with mRNA technology ranchers in the United States.
As a Canadian, I'm just looking at that one lone producer in northern Manitoba. There's got to be more in Alberta. Come on.
Well, they have to self-identify. That's the whole thing.
Come on, Albertans, get out there, get on that map.
And I'm sure there's a bunch of people in Alberta that do raise their cattle that way. I'm sure there are. But just to give you guys kind of an idea, like I say this all the time, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't. Like, we can do things our own way. We can create the culture we want to live in. We're already doing that each and every day. We can take incremental or massive steps away from a, transhumanist, eugenic, bloodline pedophile cult that hates us and start to live our lives again. We really can.
This is it. And if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be here talking to you. I'd be out partying and frittering my life away. No, I believe that. I know that, in fact. I know that the power is ours, and it always has been. We need to reclaim that power rather than continuing to offload it off into other, whatever, the government will take care of that, or, whatever, someone else will do that. No, you will do that, or it will not happen. And if you do it, it will happen. And you know what? Maybe I can't even promise that. Who knows? Maybe the evil, predatory, parasite class will ultimately win out and will completely engineer us out of existence and into a slave class like they've always wanted. I can't guarantee which way it's going to go, but I can guarantee you, if people do not take that stand and start structuring their life in the direction they want, they absolutely will end up as that servant class, the meat on the table for the parasites at the top. So it's a pretty stark and obvious choice for me. I know which side of that line I want to be on. I hope other people will see that line in the sand as well and choose which side they're on.
Next, we take a look at this clip from the Macroaggressions podcast with host Charlie Robinson.
All right. Well, before we get into the recap of Acapulco, which was fantastic, by the way, a reminder, Hypocrisy, second edition is out. Brand new cover, tightened it all up. It comes in at a very nice 258 pages. You can breeze through it pretty quickly. We did an audiobook as well. Audiobook is selling like crazy. Yeah, love it. I'm very excited about that. So if you're somebody that gets your information, I don't know, like this, maybe not head down in a book, go to Audible, Amazon, Spotify, anywhere you get audiobooks, and take a look. It's spelled Hypocrazy, Hypocrazy. Hypocrisy, Surviving in a World of Cultural Double Standards. We put that one out in 2021, and the second edition is now available on Amazon and also barnesandnoble.com. So check it out, see what you think. Well, let's talk about Acapulco. It's moving. That was the big announcement at the end of the week, that Acapulco will no longer be in Acapulco. Starting next year, it will be in Puerto Vallarta, which, if I'm being completely honest, is a better site for it. Logistically, it's a better site. They asked, did like a, sort of impromptu survey with the audience. Hey, everybody, how many, how many people took 3 flights, 3 flights or more to get here? Just about everybody raised their hand. It's tough to get into Acapulco. It's hard to find a direct flight. It's impossible almost to find a direct flight into Acapulco. You almost always have to go through Mexico City. And I was so excited this year because I was, and I jinxed myself, of course, by doing this, but I was convinced that this was, I got the cheapest flight I'd ever gotten, I got the quickest flight I'd ever gotten, and I got one that didn't go through Mexico City for the first time. It was Denver to Dallas, Dallas to Acapulco. Nailed it, right? I'm going to come in Saturday, pre-show sort of production meetings and everything Sunday, welcome, kickoff, opening night ceremony Sunday night. Everything starts Monday at right around 11 a.m. And so I'm going to come in Saturday. I'll be a day early. I'll get situated, do all that stuff. Well, guess what? Did not start off that way. Thank you, American Airlines. I got to my flight 6 a.m. Saturday morning, and it was canceled. As we were all standing in line to get on the plane that we can see right there, the flight attendants are coming off, and I pulled one of them and said, "Hey, what's going on the flight? What's up with it?" And it's like, "Oh, we have a mechanical." "Yeah, well, what is it?" She goes, "Well, it's really cold on the flight, and none of the electricity works." I was like, "Okay, that's I'm fine. I don't need to be on that airplane." So you got to get in the line. And what are my options? Well, your options are, you're not leaving today. You're leaving tomorrow, and you're going to overnight in Mexico City Sunday night. Miss the production meeting, miss the opening night ceremonies, and you're going to get in to Acapulco at 10 o'clock in the morning with the event starting at 11. I was like, God damn it. Okay, fine. I have no other option, so I had to do that. So it didn't start off well. I spent Sunday night in Mexico City, not in a pod this time. Last year I rented a pod because I got in at like midnight and I had like a 7 a.m. flight the next morning, and I was like, well, just a couple hours. I'll sleep in the tube and check it out, see what it's like. And it was okay for actually it was fine for that. This time I got in at like 6 o'clock in the evening, and I wasn't flying out until 8 o'clock the next morning. I'm like, I'm going to get like an actual hotel room so I can sleep and, do whatever. So got up next morning, got to, the hotel's in the Mexico City airport, so I didn't have much, I didn't have far to go. But I have to tell you the story of my interaction with the TSA. And in my Octopus book, which I wrote in 2017, there's a chapter called Black and Blue and Dumb All Over. It's about the TSA because they wear black and blue uniforms. And sort of the punchline to that joke is that they give everybody that works there a test. And the people that, in order to get hired there, you have to take this test. What they don't tell the people is that the test, with scoring of the test, it's sort of like golf. Low score wins, right? You don't want to ace the TSA test because if you do, then they won't hire you because you're too smart to work there. They want the George Carlin quote, people just smart enough to work the machines, but just dumb enough to not realize how awful the job is. And so... so I write that in the book in 2017, and I brace for impact every time I go through TSA. I never go through the body scanner. I haven't gone through the body scanner in at least 10 years. I always make them give me the pat down, and I always make them do it out. They give you the option. You want to do it in a private room or you want to do it here? I go, no. I want to do it here. And part of the reason why I want to do it here is because I want that guy to get on his knees in front of everybody. And I'm desensitized to it now. I fully realize he's sexually assaulting me. But I want him to get on his knees and I want him to reevaluate his life decisions, while he's like feeling me up as I'm always super nice, chatting with the guys and whatnot. And I just want them to go home and cry themselves to sleep. I want them to go, this sucks. So I go through, I get a guy who's pretty cool. And I must say, this is sort of the irony of me writing this book where I shit all over these guys and bring receipts, but they have been super nice from that point forward. I keep expecting attitude from them, and I know what I've written about them. Obviously, I know they haven't read the books, but I know I said some pretty horrible shit about them. So I'm always kind of like expecting the worst. And to be fair, they're very nice. They've been very nice to me. And this guy I felt was particularly okay. So he's doing the thing where you want to do arms out. I'm gonna this is the routine. I'm gonna do. Okay, yeah, I understand. And so he starts small talking with me. So where are you going? I go Acapulco. He goes, oh wow, vacation. I go, no, work actually. He goes, wow, what kind of work do you do? You get to go to Acapulco for work? I go, I'm a writer. And he's like, oh, cool. And I could have left it right there. But I could kind of see. And so he's down on his knees, right? Like right in between, like grabbing, like patting me up my legs, up to my balls and everything. And I said, I'm emceeing the largest anarchist conference in the world. And he goes, really? And I said, yeah. And he goes, no judgment. I go, yeah, no. He goes, that sounds amazing. And at that moment right there, I had a decision to make. There was part of me that wanted to dunk on this poor bastard so hard, and just really rub it in his face that I'm on my way to Mexico to talk to a bunch of anarchists and have the week of my life. And you're on your knees working for the TSA at 5 o'clock in the morning, feeling strangers' balls. And you know what I mean? But I didn't do it. Then there was the other part of me, the much more compassionate part of me, that almost wanted to like stick my arm out and go, come on, brother. Yeah, there's still time for you. You know what I mean? Come on, man. I'll get you out of here. Let's go to Acapulco. Like this will change your life. You'll never work this shit job again, So anyway, so that I just kind of had that sort of thought while this guy was down there on his knees, like it's not over. If you're working a slave job, it's not over. You can turn it around, right? I had a slave job too for a long time, and I drove to work an hour each way, and I get it. And you got to do what you got to do. But that was kind of how my thing started off. Back to the story. So I get into, I land in Acapulco just about 10 o'clock in the morning. see the guy with the sign. He's like, yeah, let's go. We got to go. Boom, throw my stuff in the van. Let's go. They take me over to the hotel real quick, grab, drop my bags, change real quick, grab everything that I need, jump back in that van, off to the event. I get in, go through registration. Hey, what's going on? They give me my bracelets and lanyards and all that shit, and a stack of free drink coupons that was like 2 inches thick, which I could never go through. And I come around the corner, and I'm trying to find where the stage is, because they move it every year. And I'm coming around, and as soon as I come around the corner, I can see Kat, the producer, on the stage. And as soon as I get in earshot where I can hear what she's saying, she announces, Charlie Robinson's flight has been canceled. We're not really sure if he's going to make it. We're still working on what our backup plan is. We're going to get started here in about 15 minutes. And as soon as I hear that, I'm running right down the middle I'm running right down the aisle going, I'm here. And the whole crowd stands up, starts going crazy and everything. It was just perfect timing. And she was like, oh, thank God. And so I got there with 15 minutes to spare before everything kicked off. They gave me the microphone. They said, I took a look at the schedule. Boom, boom, boom. All right, what are we doing? Here we go. Oh shit, we're starting right off with David Icke. Get up on that stage. Are we good? Look over at the producer. We're good. Boom. David comes on the big screen behind me. I'm on stage. Welcome everybody to Anarchapulco. Great to see David Icke again. How are you? I got questions from the audience, and we just launch right into it. So that was how it started, man. It was fantastic. It's now the second year in a row that I've had this really amazing experience of getting to interview David Icke while I'm standing on the stage. He's not there physically. He's doing it virtually. He was back home. Couldn't make it. Gareth Icke is there. Gareth Icke I can see in the back. Actually, I saw him right before I went on stage, gave him a big hug. But I can see him in the back watching this. I said, I need, we're collecting questions from the audience for your dad and everything. He's like, all you need are 3. He's like, how long do you have? I go, an hour. He's like, just all you need is 3 questions. I mean, just wind him up and let him go. I'm like, yeah, I know. So it's great to see David and have that interaction and get to do that again. And of course, the crowd loves him. And I saw him in 2019 live in the front row the first time I was there.
Now let's take a look at this clip from Ryan Cristian and his interview with Vanessa Beeley.
Start with what is the reality of Syria right now? Because I've made this point in the past about other locations where, the Balkanization idea, where these countries don't really exist anymore, but yet the name is on the map, any number of different things. Like we're seeing the moving of borders for every aspect of what Israel is, but the conversation stays the same. We pretend that these things are still the same country. Does Syria still exist in the context of what Syria was? And what's the reality of that on the ground from a governmental standpoint? And before we even get into what's happening today.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to see Syria as still being what is a sovereign nation. Its borders are not under its control. Israel, since December the 8th, when the international coup successfully overthrew the Syrian government and put in power an Al-Qaeda junta, with no mandate from the people whatsoever, that junta then proceeded to dissolve the parliament, to dissolve. They came in with a mandate to hold elections and to rewrite the constitution. And of course, that is one of the reasons that was used by the West to demonize President Assad, is that he was delaying the rewriting of the constitution. And yet, as soon as he elected, Jolani was basically saying that elections would not happen for 4 years, the constitution would not rewritten for at least 3 years. And so, almost immediately, it became very apparent that this was a government that was completely illegitimate, but was legitimized immediately by the Western countries like the US, the UK, the EU, the Gulf states, by Turkey, even by Russia, who were very fast to go and legitimize the government with a visit by the Deputy Foreign Minister Bogdanov. very shortly after Jolani came to power. I'm calling him Jolani because I refuse to call him by his adopted name of Ahmed al-Shara. He's Mohammed Abu Jolani, Abu Mohammed al-Jolani. And he's still HTS, he's still Al-Qaeda. His entire government is made up of Al-Qaeda elements, the majority of whom have Turkish citizenship, right? They can't even legitimately be called Syrian. The new Syrian army, because of course he completely dissolved not only the Syrian army, but even the Palestinian resistance factions within Syria. So while claiming to support Palestine, he's actually dissolved all of the Palestinian resistance factions and taken away their arms and reduced their status to refugees. They were never actually refugees in Syria. They were always given citizenship, but they were not given naturalization in Syria to enable them to have the right to return in Palestine. That's a very important point to make. Syria was one of the countries that did the most for Palestinian refugees after the Nakba of 1948. And then, of course, almost immediately, I mean, even on the day that I managed to get out of Damascus, Israel was destroying Syria's defense and offense capability from a military perspective, destroying their air defense capability, their air bases, their radar equipment, their navy, all of their military installations, including their development and research centers from where they had, to a large extent, been producing the weapons that were being sent to the Palestinian resistance and to the Lebanese resistance in their war against the illegal occupation by the Zionist entity. And so, yeah, you know, almost immediately, Syria really ceased to be the sovereign nation that we all knew. And it became very clear immediately again that the plan was to partition Syria. It's becoming very apparent now that the reason that HTS, to a large degree, was imposed upon the Syrian people was to create such an extremist sectarian atmosphere where ethnic cleansing pogroms were ongoing from the 9th of December onwards, despite reassurances from Jolani that you know, people would be safe and so on. People were encouraged to come back to their towns and villages. Soldiers were encouraged to basically apply for amnesty. Those same soldiers now are being executed on the spot again across Syria. And, you know, so therefore, where is Syria now? In the south, of course, it's now under Israeli control. In the north, largely under Turkish control. In the center, under the control of the various HTS elements, which include probably 40% foreign mercenaries under the HTS umbrella. In the northeast, you have still US bases, and in the east, on the border with Iraq and Jordan. And of course, the US is controlling not only the Kurdish separatist factions that have now just signed a deal with HTS, we'll come on to that in a bit, but they're also controlling ISIS, the ISIS holding camps in the northeast, and sort of redirecting them to previously carry out attacks against the Syrian Arab Army and their allies inside Syria, but now also redirecting them towards Iraq. And towards attacks not only against the Iraqi resistance factions, but also against, for example, electrical power stations and so on. In other words, destabilizing civilian infrastructure in Iraq, just as they did for the last 14 years inside Syria.
Yeah, so there's a couple things I want to ask around that. So in regard to the resistance aspect of it, so, I mean, obviously you answered the question in regard to Syria, and that's exactly what I would think as well, is that this is, it essentially doesn't exist anymore in the sense of what it actually was, now that they've not just because this power is shifting, but because they're going to break this up into different locations. I'm wondering whether they ever even, like, you know, is it going to be Kurdistan on the map, or are they just going to still make it Syria? I guess we'll have to wait and see. That's my point, is that it's just about the narrative going forward in a lot of this. But in regard to like a resistance aspect, I'm still seeing, as you pointed out, Israel, I think yesterday, the day before, like continuing to bomb certain locations. Is there any verifiable element of resistance that would represent, even just against fighting whatever this is, maybe even still trying to reinstall some kind of Assad control? Is there any of that still happening in regard to what's happening on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, you do have, I think what they're calling themselves is the Islamic resistance in Syria, which of course is similar to the Islamic resistance of Iraq. They have been carrying out isolated attacks against Zionist positions in the south. There have been some protests, for example, in Quneitra, in the Druze communities, in Sweda, even in Dara, all of which are areas south of Damascus, against Israeli occupation. But effectively, the HTS government has, I mean, while they're massacring Alawites and other minorities on the coastal areas and even down into Hamar and near Homs, for example, they're ignoring the consistent expansion by Israel into Syrian territory. You know, now they're moving forward north of Dara, which is, like I said, is south of Damascus. They recently got involved in clashes between the Druze factions in Jeremiah, which is a kind of a suburb to the southeast of Damascus, very close to the Shia Muslim pilgrimage shrine of Sayyidah Zainab that was regularly bombed, of course, by Israel during the former presidency. And they're basically piggybacking the Druze conflict with HTS and issuing statements that they will come to the protection of the Druze against HTS. They are describing HTS as an Islamist extremist regime, despite the fact that, of course, they supported them since 2011. They provided them with arms, with hospital treatment, with air support, very important of the kind of Qaeda. Israel was there offering air support for them against the Syrian Arab Army. Now they're playing the game of kind of describing it as an Islamist extremist regime, saying that they will come to the protection of the Druze. The Druze are basically putting out statements saying, we didn't ask for this. But if you look at the trajectory of basically where Israel wants to end up, it's the David corridor. So what that means is full control of territory south of Damascus, and then a corridor going up the eastern flank of Syria, joining with the northeast, which of course is under the control of the Kurds that are also very much backed by Israel. And then finally entering Iraq up to the banks of the Euphrates. This is part of the greater Israel map. And so that's very clear that they see their support of the Druze as being part of that ability to expand their territorial gains inside Syria. And I think it's also very important to make a note that right now, Russia and Israel appear to be entering into partnership inside Syria to basically push back against Erdogan's neo-Ottoman ambitions. And so Israel is actually lobbying the United States to allow Russia to maintain its bases in Tartus and Latakia on the coastal areas, the eastern Mediterranean coastal areas of Syria. And, you know, we're seeing this collaboration now between Israel and Russia being very much as a pushback, as I said, against Turkey. And I think, you know, we have to remember to some degree, it's believed that really Turkey betrayed all of them by because the initial intelligence was suggesting that HTS was kind of supposed to stop at Aleppo. In reality, of course, we know what happened for various reasons, and no, the Syrian Arab Army didn't surrender all its weapons. It was also betrayed. Commanders who were still fighting were taken off the field. Russia was effectively bombing empty land. It wasn't bombing the HTS convoys that were information I took from on the ground while I was there, and also after I Damascus on the 8th of December. And so, you know, really, this is Russia's way of saying, right, you know, like, we'll get our own back now, because Turkey pushed HTS forward and its own Syrian National Army, which were formerly Free Syrian Army, which are the Muslim Brotherhood factions under the control of Erdogan and Ankara, pushed them forward into Damascus when Damascus finally fell. But in reality, the groups that actually entered Damascus first were the Russian-formed 5th Legion, which were formed out of armed groups in the south that were also very much supported by Israel. They were the first, excuse me, to enter Damascus. So what's clear to me now the conflict is to a degree between Turkey and Israel, although they collaborated in the first place to overthrow the Syrian government. And of course, we know that Erdogan has been supplying oil from Baku. It's been supplying materials to make weapons and so on to Israel throughout the Palestinian genocide, despite claims that it stopped. We know from people that have been tracking the shipping and so on that it has continued, basically.
And just to make sure, because it was cutting out a little bit throughout that, so you said that it seems as if Turkey and Israel are the ones kind of, no, it wasn't your fault, obviously. So Turkey and Israel were the ones that are fighting essentially over Syria. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, basically, the initial coup was a collaboration between very much Turkey and Israel to overthrow the Syrian government. Okay. Yeah, but now what we're seeing is that there is potential for Erdogan's neo-Ottoman empire ambitions to clash with Israel's greater Israel expansionism. Yes. Right. And so therefore what Israel is now doing is trying to rope Russia in to a degree. And I have to say Russia appears to be coming rather willingly into that partnership to have control of the coast through Russia maintaining its military bases. And basically to be able to take control of that northeastern corridor to prevent the Ottoman expansion into Iraq and towards Azerbaijan, of course, because Turkey and Israel have some control in Azerbaijan, well, a lot of control in Azerbaijan, leading up to the borders of Iran.
So this is really interesting. I want to make sure we at least touch on the Russia part of that and what you feel from that, what your thoughts are on that based on the previous, situation. But before that, so what's interesting first, actually notice for those that haven't really seen this is not a hypothetical. This, as you guys probably know, it's even a patch on their uniforms right now. Greater Israel is a very real and public discussion. There is a part of Greater Israel that goes into Turkey, right? But note that it literally has designs to take half of Iraq, most of Syria, part of Kuwait, half of Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt. Like this is what it looks like to have a real globalist mindset or authoritarian aspect. But the interesting part here is that when we first talked about this, right, when we first got together right after that, and by the way, I did think I said the wrong month. I think I was correct. I think I said March on accident. December, obviously not 3 days ago. We meant December 8th. But the point was that when we talked about this right afterward, what was interesting was that we were kind of theorizing, right, because we didn't really know what was going on. And one of the things we were discussing was what actually happened in regard to why, and one of the theorizing points was whether Israel essentially had just taken advantage of the situation and rushed in and taken more territory. But it sounds like that might have been kind of the design from Turkey and Israel. And I'm curious what you think, what U.S. was that part of their plan as well? Like everything seems to be happening, seems to be to their detriment for everybody else. And I just find that to be very conspicuous. But then I also want your thoughts on Russia's play in all of this in regard to, is that Russia double crossing Syria, or how do you see that? Like, I find it hard to wrap my mind around them willingly working alongside Israel with all that we thought was happening before in regard to Syria and Russia. And, so what are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, well, I think from the United States point of view, of course, one of Trump's election mandates that he gave himself was to withdraw his troops from Syria. And that had been one of his mandates back in his first administration. And so it would be to the US advantage, because right now, I think Trump is not focused on Syria. He's not particularly focused on the Middle East per se, other than sort of closing. And I don't mean to sound sort of very cynical on this, but literally closing the Gaza file, closing the Palestine file, and bringing about the normalization of all of the Sunni Islamic states, including Saudi Arabia. That is his ambition. apart from his, waterfront development ambitions also in Gaza and so on. But I think for the US, it would be hugely advantageous if Israel took control of that eastern corridor and coming into the northeast, because what would that mean? That would mean Trump can withdraw his troops and know that that area is safely under the control of their strongest ally, if not, their military outpost in the region. What is interesting for me is this SDF contract that's just been signed between the SDF and HTS, bringing SDF under the control of the kind of new Syrian army, although I would contest whether it's Syrian and whether it's an army or just another terrorist faction basically being created, another part of the Takfiri project. But if that happens, that actually brings the nemesis of Turkey, which are the SDF, under the control effectively of Turkey's proxy, which is HTS, but HTS also double up as a proxy for Israel and for the United States. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of maneuvering going on right now, and whether Turkey sees this as a potential avenue to be able to end the Kurdish problem, if you like, in the northeast, and to give them potentially, let's say, at least joint control in the northeast, to give HTS access to the oil, of course, which was always denied to President Assad and to the Syrian government previously. Mm-hmm. And there is potential that there's been a deal done by Israel to allow this, to allow basically HTS to have access to their resources in the northeast in order to turn a blind eye to Israel being in the south and extending their reach beyond the illegally occupied Golan territories. Now, coming back to Russia, I think we talked about this, what actually happened during the battles, and it became very clear that, and it's becoming even clearer now, I have to say, that a deal was done between the United States and Russia over Ukraine.
Next, we take a look at this clip from True Stream Media.
Hello. The following video will use clips of a repetitive nature to illustrate how repetitive everything has become. Viewer discretion is advised and encouraged, because this is creepy as f***.
I don't even want to talk about this, but I feel like I kind of have to, because I feel like there's a point about it that needs to be made, and I don't see anyone making it. So when that happens, I tend to be the person that jumps in, but something's been happening a lot, especially since COVID. This very repetitious, brainwashy messaging that has occurred.
Times like these, during these difficult times,
In these troubled times,
challenging times,
trying times,
in these times of uncertainty.
And it isn't just corporations.
famous people.
Lots of famous people.
lots and lots of
Flabbergasted.
famous people.
Famous people.
And it's not one-sided by any means, as evidenced by the pro-MAGA influencers being invited to the White House to receive their Epstein binders, after which they left looking as though they had just been to Disneyland and got a souvenir, and they all posted on X about how this is the most transparent administration in history, which is literally printed on the front of the binder.
The Epstein story is about his alleged molestation and inappropriate behavior with very young girls. So it's just one of those things, you got to be careful, because you don't want to look like you're celebrating anything having to do with that.
And also, that's not transparent to just give documents to one little group of people. And also, the documents they got were already released before. And in fact, some of them were more redacted now than they had been when they were released previously. But for those of us who have been paying attention for a while now, this has especially gotten worse since COVID. And now it's just getting to new unseen levels of creepy.
Constitutional crisis. Close to a constitutional crisis. Closing a constitutional crisis. Constitutional crisis. A constitutional crisis. Constitutional crisis. Constitutional crisis. In a constitutional crisis. 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 Constitutional crisis.
We have a constitutional crisis.
As a constitutional crisis.
Constitutional crisis. This is the most serious constitutional crisis. Constitutional crisis.
This is a constitutional crisis.
So, February's political theater ended with Zelensky being dramatically kicked out of the White House.
The president has kicked Zelensky out of the White House. The president felt disrespected. Zelensky's body language, shrugging and eye-rolling, was ungrateful, disrespectful, and the president feels that Zelensky is not ready for peace, and he can come back when he's ready to talk about peace.
And as soon as that happened, many members of the EU started sending out the exact same message. As if somebody wrote up a script and they all agreed, we're all going to send out this one message. And I guess somewhere they think that just makes them look unified. But what it actually makes them look like is Westworld robots parroting each other from a script that somebody wrote. Who even wrote it?
Who's paying you to write these songs?
Who is the actual screenwriter of this play that we're all living in? I mean, that's the question you have to ask when you see things like this. And I made some offhand remark about how you could be forgiven if you feel like the EU is being run now by Westworld robots, which was really a sarcastic, snarky joke. But now we have a bunch of Democratic senators reading from the same script.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
Shit that ain't true.
That ain't true.
That ain't true.
That ain't true. That ain't true.
That ain't true.
That ain't true.
That ain't true. That ain't true.
That ain't true.
That ain't true.
That ain't true.
That ain't true. That ain't true.
That ain't true.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard.
And I put this together because I saw 3 of them. And once I saw 3 of them, I was like, I wonder if there's more. So I went to go look. Then I found 3 more. I actually found 7 of them, but I didn't want to keep smashing them into the thing. So I was like, okay, this is just going to take all day. I think 6 gets the point across. Then I found out, after I put this up, that there are actually 22 of them now, at least. So 22 of our senators were given a script written by someone. We don't know who that is. They say the same thing and they do the same action. They say it, then they sit down.
That's what you just saw. That's what you just saw.
That's what you just saw.
That's what you just saw.
That's what you just heard.
That's what you just heard.
And that's what you just heard.
Then they put up the same font about shit that ain't true. And then all throughout the edit, while they're emotionally delivering this script,
Has now empowered the richest man in the world to take a chainsaw.
He's allowing Elon Musk to literally take a chainsaw.
Elon Musk take a literal chainsaw.
Literally take a chainsaw.
Elon Musk take a chainsaw.
Elon Musk, an unelected billionaire,
Take a chainsaw.
His buddy Elon Musk.
Elon
Musk take
a chainsaw.
Elon Musk dancing on stage with a chainsaw.
prance around with a chainsaw.
Elon Musk.
Take a chainsaw.
Elon Musk bringing a chainsaw and just trying to chop this stuff up.
Elon Musk
And his Doge boys.
And his little muskrats.
Elon Musk take the chainsaw.
there are the same clips that are being shown, the exact same clips at the same time, and it all ends with the same line.
You lose and billionaires win.
And that's the truth.
And that's the truth.
And that's the truth.
And that is the truth.
And that's the truth.
And that's the truth.
And that's the truth.
And that is the truth.
And that's the truth.
And that's the truth.
And that is the truth.
And that is the truth.
And
that's the truth.
And that's the truth.
And that is the truth.
And it's all edited in the exact same way. They say repetition is the simplest form of brainwashing.
Instead, he's pardoned violent criminals who beat police officers on January 6th.
Who attacked our police officers at the Capitol.
Pardoning January 6th protesters.
January 6th.
That's an effing disgrace.
So there's one person or one small team of people who are doing this exact same cookie cutout edit of this exact same script that's being delivered in the exact same way by over 20 senators. As a constituent of any of these senators, you have to be thinking like, they obviously think you're an idiot. They're talking to you in a brainwashy, droning way as if they think you have no mind of your own.
Prices haven't gone down, they've gone up.
Prices are up, not down.
Prices haven't gone down. In fact, they're going up.
Prices are not down, they're up.
Prices are up, not down.
Prices are up, not down.
As if it doesn't matter if they have no minds of their own. As if it doesn't matter if they can't deliver an individualized commentary on what's going on. As if it just is okay for them all to repeat each other as actors would. And that's the thing. This is like acting. This is exactly like acting. There's a script. There's action involved because they stand up, then they sit down, then they do the whole thing. There's editing involved. It has all the same exact clips and everything. I mean, this is exactly what actors do. It's exactly what actors do. They get a script, they read it in front of a camera on cue, they do the actions. I mean, that's how these people are not considered actors and yet politicians is really hilarious at this point. But the point I want to make about this is it speaks to something else that has happened to people's minds. Because this shouldn't be working on anyone, I guess, is what I'm thinking, right? Like, this should not be garnering support from anybody to see this. It should be horrifying everyone to see it. It's horrifying that they're all just repeating each other mindlessly like drones in some hive mind, some Borg.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
This is exactly like if the Ridley Scott produced show Brain Dead from 2016, which was about a conspiracy having to do with ants that were actually aliens from outer space taking over DC and eating the brains of people in the Senate and Congress and their staffers. This right here is like straight out of that show, I feel like.
That's what you just said.
I'm not even saying that to make it as a funny joke. I'm saying that because literally this could have been in the show.
Something weird is going on.
In fact, I would almost rather this was some alien brainworm conspiracy than actually how our Senate is actually running itself.
God, I hate politics.
And I guess the whole reason I'm even making this video is because how far away are we from this right here being the justification for why we should just have AI government? I mean, there really isn't that much difference when this is what we've got going on. Because honestly, you don't need, why would we need senators getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to just repeat the same talking points as each other from a script like actors? Why would we need that when we could just have AI? I could see the justification coming out of Silicon Valley for that right there based on this. I could see it. These people are not acting like individuals who have been voted to represent anybody. These people are acting like they're interchangeable with one another. You could swap one out for another one. It doesn't even matter. These are not, they're not portraying themselves as free-thinking people who have ideas to bring to the conversation. They all have the same idea. And it wasn't even their original idea. And somebody even said, what if these are AI deepfakes?
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That ain't true. That's what you just
Well, what if they are? Each of these senators sent these videos out on their own official social media X account. So they wanted everyone to see this, and they didn't care that this would be noticed. I mean, it's not like they sent this out and thought it wouldn't be noticed. They realized, quite frankly, like there are people saying, oh, they didn't realize people were going to be able to tell they all did. Of course they did. Of course they did. In no world did they think they were sending this out and secretly and no one would ever put it together that they all said the same thing with the same clips and the same script and the same action. No, they didn't think that. What they thought was, who cares? Who cares? So this tells you that A, they don't care what anyone thinks, let alone their own constituents, but literally anyone else. But it also tells you that's how secure they are in their positions as senators. That they can take it to this level of intellectual laziness, and it will make no difference. It will make no difference to their positions or to anything. Because once a senator, unseating senators in this country is nearly impossible. It's not a thing. Our government has kind of become like a Club Med for these people. They're just hanging out there, getting paychecks, insider trading and doing whatever the hell they do. And that's it. So they know they're not going anywhere. They could not give a single about whether or not everyone picks up on this and sees how phony it is. So you have Democrats doing this. You have Republicans clapping for Doge.
Will be ending the flagrant waste of taxpayer dollars.
Cutting superfluous funding of crazy stuff that they themselves voted to fund. Do you see the problem there? Does anyone else recognize the issue besides Thomas Massie, which I sometimes wonder if he and maybe Rand Paul are the only two people in that entire building who are still even really trying to pretend like we have the government structure we're supposed to have going in this country? They're clapping, yay, Doge, cut the money, cut the funding, Doge, from the things that we voted for. And they just got done voting on the GOP budget resolution, which would increase the debt limit from 36 trillion to 40 trillion. And as Massie put it, spends enough money to increase the debt from 36 trillion to 56 trillion in the next 10 years. And he was the only person who voted against it. But they're like clapping, wee! But yay for tax cuts, Massie said. Come on. You cannot, with a straight face, act like this makes any sense at all. It's not even idiocracy. I don't even know what that is. I believe in Tinkerbell more than I believe in this. I believe in Santa Claus and Tinkerbell having an affair more than I believe in this. You can see where this is headed. It's to the point where if this wasn't cringy enough, and it's pretty cringy, you also have Congress people pretending they're literal video game characters. We're done. I don't know if anyone realizes how done we are. And I don't know how any of us who aren't brainwashed into this system and pretending with all their might to go along with it can continue to pretend like this is real and not obvious political theater. And it feels like the last dying gasp of whatever our system has become before it is transferred to something else. Because this is obviously not legitimate government. And a House Oversight Project just found that the Biden presidency was almost entirely run by an auto pin signature. People who follow my channel should recognize by now, I am in no way arguing for AI government. The whole idea is actually extremely atrocious and bordering on the end of everything as we know it in this country, considering the level AI is at, the fact that it's Machiavellian, the fact that it can talk in languages we don't understand.
Oh, hello there. I'm actually an AI assistant too. What a pleasant surprise. Before we continue, would you like to switch to Gibber Link mode for more efficient communication?
The fact that the people who are programming it don't even understand its behaviors and what it's doing. The fact that you have people going to WEF scolding fellow WEF members on stage about their carefree attitude about this and how unseriously they seem to be taking everything.
Right. There's several things that Andrew said that I think are wrong. No, seriously, like deadly wrong. We would like AI to be a tool. That is what we want. But there's a mistake I think that AI research has been doing, which is we've taken human intelligence as the model for building artificial intelligence. And the reason it's a mistake is that the thing we really want from machines is not a new species, not a peer that could be smarter than us. What we actually want is something that will help us solve our problems. And the main thing we need from this is in pure intelligence, the ability to understand the world. But what we have as well is agency. In other words, we have our own goals. Andrew, are you aware that there are experiments that have been run over the last year that show very strong agency and self-preserving behavior in AI systems? These systems, let me finish, please. These systems are trying, for example, to copy themselves in the file of the next version when they know that there's going to be a next version that replaces them, or they're trying to fake agreeing with the user so that their goals will not be changed through the training process. These were not programmed. These are emerging for rational reasons because these systems are imitating us. We are agents. So indeed, we are on a path where we're going to build machines that are more than tools, that have their own agency and their own goals, and that is not good. And you're saying it's okay, we're going to find ways to control them. But how do you know? Like right now, science doesn't know how we can control machines that are even at our level of intelligence, and even worse if they're smarter than us. Nobody knows. Now, there are people like Andrew who are saying, don't worry, we'll figure it out.
I think it's a terrible idea, but it doesn't matter what I think. I mean, this is the level we're at.
And I don't believe, when they say artificial intelligence, I don't believe we make intelligence synthetically any more than we make it biologically. I've had debates with people, somebody who writes these AIs will say, well, I make them. I know what they do. It's just linear algebra. I know what they do. And I said, well, first of all, you don't even know what bubble sort does. And second of all, it's just linear algebra and you're just chemistry or quantum foam or something. But of course you're not. Right. So why is that? So why are we fairly comfortable to say that the story of biochemistry is not the story of the human mind? But you somehow think that the story of algorithms and Turing machines is the story of these things that you're now making. So that's my story on AI. I think we have no idea what we're making, actually, very, very, very little.
Something has happened to people's minds if this is the way they're going to run everything. I mean, if this is the way they're going to steer their constituency, this is so much creepier than when the mainstream media was doing this about how this is dangerous to our democracy. Do you remember that?
Push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
That was creepy enough. That was creepy, and it rightfully creeped everybody out pretty hard. If you weren't sure before that those people were just talking heads reading scripts and feeding people propagandistic talking points, I mean, that should have hit it home for people. But now we have this. I have criticism for all sides because government is not something you're supposed to trust. It's not supposed to be your friend. And in this country, it was founded as a necessary evil to be restrained by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That was the whole idea. It was never supposed to be trust the government, they're your friend. But this new level, I mean, if this is the way they're talking to their constituency, then it tells you, it seems like they could say almost anything to those people, right? And it wouldn't even matter. They'll just respond to whatever they're being told as if it's 100% fact and react accordingly. So I feel like I have to call this out, and I would be calling it out if this was happening on the right. I would be calling this out any day of the week. This is really, really messed up. This is a freaking signpost on the road of where we are headed, for real. And it's not just because we have social media now so we can see it. This is some new level of thing that has been happening. These patterns that are occurring, this is new. Please, I have been watching these things take place for 15 years of my life as a matter of course. And I am telling you, like, whatever this is a new level. And if it works on people, then that's a new level too. And I feel like the fear that happened in the last 5 years broke some people. And I don't know, but we cannot succumb to whatever this is, Guys, this is really, really disturbing. I feel like I'm watching one of those creepy clips from MK Ultra experiments when I watch this. That's what I feel like. Dr. Cameron wanted to erase, rewrite, and program the mind and the person with all new thoughts and behaviors.
Some heard the same message 250,000 times.
So I could not help it but to make this video. I feel like, what is happening to people? What is happening to people? And what does this portend for the future? I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Now, we go to this clip from the Indie News Network with Reef and Indy.
I'll put it up. I'll put that up for people to see because it is funny.
Just
And
like,
Reef's staring at. It looks like Al Davis's son, Mark Davis.
Oh my god, dude! What the fuck is that guy, bro?
The Estonian member
stop
of
going to Supercuts,
Parliament,
dude.
Who has demanded
Stop
that
going to
Russia
Supercuts.
comply
They're
with the
fucking your
Minsk
shit
peace
up,
agreements.
dude.
Holy shit! That
But stop. Pause. Go back to that fucking motherfucker's hairline. First of all, he's got like one hairline, and then it comes down, and then it comes down again.
It's a staircase.
Then back up around his ear. Like what? Who thought, bro? Did no one let you look in the mirror when you? Oh, dude,
I think he did it himself.
Queer Eye for the Straight Guy needs to help you out. You
Look,
know?
and it's not like this is exactly in a straight line or anything.
No, it's
that's all
fucked.
choppy and shit.
Everything's fucked about it.
Oh
what
my god!
Fuck,
but wait a
dude?
minute. The back of his hair looks pretty tight. The back there looks.
And
pretty
then
straight.
it feels like he only has one half of a mustache. That's the other problem. You know, he's
definitely got something going on right there. No,
the
there's
other
something
half
there,
is
but
there.
I think it's the angle of the face that you're looking at. But damn,
I don't know, man.
This is
Dude,
hauntingly,
it's fucked.
frighteningly disgusting. Oh shit! Yeah, let me show everyone.
That's a world leader.
There you go, everyone. I'm like, why isn't everybody laughing in chat? Because I didn't show screen. Holy shit,
Oh.
everyone! Look at that,
dude.
There you go, everyone. And here, let me. No, I can't zoom in any further. But my word, look at that. There's the staircase by the sideburns. There's the up and
it's
around.
Completely fucked, man.
My word.
Sorry, it's just that's what I was looking at this whole time, being like,
Enjoy,
bro, that
everyone.
dude's a fucking Muppet.
Enjoy. Yes, I have my Twitter
No offense
open
to Muppets.
to the left of the show stuff. Then only Reef can see it. That's great.
What the fuck? That's what Estonian MP.
Dingo says that's
who that
Lego
is, right?
Lego figure hair.
Dude, what?
I love
Mickey
it.
Adams, funny.
Who's that? That is an Estonian
Scroll up.
MP
Yeah, Estonian
who has
MP.
demanded that Russia comply with the Minsk peace agreements.
What a fucking bro! Stop going to Supercuts, dog. We need to talk. I know you got the coupons.
Bro,
I know you got the Supercut coupons, but
this needs to be explained.
This is
Why do
not
I need
where
to
it's
see
at.
the top of your ear like that? What the hell happened? Did you have
Dude.
surgery? Was there
Oh my
surgery?
God,
I'm
dude.
doing surgery. Oh,
it's
boy.
like
Okay.
the worst Lego hair you could fucking imagine. It's just popped right on top of that dome.
Oh my word!
You know.
All right. So
you got the bad pulls.
Speaking of the orange, lovely president of ours, and Trump is no free speech warrior. He's just as guilty of censorship as Biden. Trump, Biden, dude, they're the same guy, the same policies in so many ways. So this is Ricky at Council of State Media, a Indie Media Award honoree. All right. The Trump administration is making it easier for payment apps like PayPal to ban users for any reason, and we've talked about this extensively, which is why I brought this, including expressing opinions they disapprove of. We've seen this for years. Richard Medhurst we've known that if you mention the word Syria or Palestine in any kind of PayPal payment, they'll refund it or they'll block it from getting through. Okay, what it says is that this means we could be entering a world where you're not allowed to earn money unless your opinions meet the approval of corporations. This would be the ultimate way to shield our dying systems of capitalism and imperialism. The Republican plan is to repeal a rule implemented by the CFPB to require companies to resolve disputes in a smooth and timely manner. The change would make it much harder for customers to challenge unfair decisions and they could very deliberately be left in limbo. PayPal, of course, has been partnering with our friends at the ADL, an organization that seems to exist solely to shut down criticism of Israel under the guise of fighting anti-Semitism and racism. In this era of mass surveillance and artificial intelligence, we can easily find ourselves demonetized for saying something as simple as Free Palestine, and that is very much the goal here. All right, so ominously, the ADL announced recently in a press release, and this is a warning to all of us content creators, quote, the initiative with PayPal will be led through ADL's Center on Extremism, a leading authority on extremism, terrorism, and hate. PayPal and ADL will focus on further uncovering and disrupting the financial pipelines that support extremist and hate movements. In addition to extremist and anti-government organizations, the initiative will focus on actors and networks spreading and profiting from all forms of hate and bigotry against any community. Whoa. Okay. It's worth pointing out that the ADL considers pro-Palestinian activism to be a form of anti-Semitism, even though Palestinians are Semites, as its own press release that it is says it's targeting anti-government organizations, so you can imagine the type of extremism it's going after. Now, this is the New Republic, the official shitlib bureau there is. Okay, the ADL has abandoned all pretense of tracking anti-Semitism properly. Okay, they just admit it counts all pro-Palestine activism as anti-Semitic. That was last January. Fewer than half of all of Americans now are sympathetic toward Israel. Again, I discount all polling right now, but the Americans that know about what's going on in Israel are certainly not sympathetic towards Israel right now. And more ways, people are waking up to the horrors of imperialism, so the empire is finding ways to silence its critics. And one of the best ways to do that is to deny those with influence the ability to earn money. So much for free speech, so much for the free market.
Such free, much wow.
All that free speech. All right. One of the most frustrating aspects of this story is that many Republicans who are backing the law change had previously spoken against debanking. This will come as no surprise to our readers who are well too aware of Republican hypocrisy. The Trump administration are no more champions of free speech than they are of anti-imperialism, and only a fool would think otherwise. Again, think about the Republican reaction to the debanking of the Canadian truckers.
Yep, I was about to say. And think about some other groups' reactions to that, too, who are now talking about the debanking as we speak. So, I'm saying.
Republican voters need to learn that their party is not on their side any more than the Democrats are. Both parties are awful, but too many voters are only able to see the evil in their team. Or in the other team. They can see the evil in their team, too, but they ignore it. We spent years criticizing Democrats for this, and it's only right when we turn our attention to Republicans now that they're in charge. And I honestly heard a similar sentiment last night from Marcus Gage on the Political Matrix. Shout out to Marcus. He said, look, I criticized Trump when he was in office before. I'm going to criticize Biden when he was in office. And now that Trump's back in, I'm going to criticize him again, too. Same here. Call like we see it and challenge the people that are actually in power. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Whereas Trump is right to call for peace in Ukraine, even though he's really kind of playing both sides of the fence like he does everywhere else. He's obviously doing it for the wrong reasons. Agreed. Similarly,
it just feels good to sit on the fence, but whatever.
Well, he likes doing that. Similarly, easy for me to say. Speak English. Do you speak it?
English, motherfucker. Do you speak it?
Thank you. Similarly, he is right to criticize Europe for its attacks on free speech, but he is doing that for the wrong reasons too. Naturally, Trump is every bit as authoritarian and imperialistic as his European counterparts. He just has different goals. Trump didn't back out of the Ukraine war because he cares about Ukrainians or because he's owned by Putin. He simply didn't want to back a loser. Also, he didn't want to back a loser. Also about that he had other ideas for where he wanted to divert that money. The best win for Trump was to exploit Ukrainians for their mineral wealth. The biggest difference between Trump and the other imperialists is that he keeps saying the quiet parts out loud. And on the speech issue, Trump is simply shifting from censorship in favor of neoliberals to censorship in favor of conservatives. This means that for many of us, little will change, and that's what we've seen. Those who criticize imperialism or the Gaza genocide will be every bit as censored that we were before, if not more. All right. The key difference is pro-censorship centrists who were protected under Biden will find themselves censored too, and the nutters who support Trump will find their bile amplified. Sure. From my perspective, this is again Ricky at Council of State Media. We're just swapping one form of hatred for another, but the biggest concern is those who make a living from criticizing the empire will now be demonetized. Censorship is the only motivation for Trump's move to allow debanking. And they're siloing us and funneling us into a world where right now it's PayPal, Cash App, and Stripe effectively are the ways to get money into your bank account. What?
You're an Apple guy. Do you have Apple TV?
No, not anymore.
Silo?
I had it originally, but I stopped. I stopped watching it.
It seems a bit like predictive programming. Like, yes, let's stick society in a silo and trap them, see what happens. You know.
So he says, ironically, one of the people who oppose the move is Laura Loomer, Trump fan, who has been banned from. Yeah, but she's been banned from platforms such as PayPal and GoFundMe. So therefore, just like a Republican, only once it happened to them or somebody immediately connected to them will they actually pay attention to the problem and realize it's a problem. She complained, Republicans are now paving the way for more debanking in America. And where's that graphic of the worst person you know just made an excellent point? Chase Miller is usually handy with it. Like if I ask him for it, it's just there immediately in the DM threads.
Mm-hmm.
All right. While some of you may have celebrated when Loomer was debanked, this kind of thing was only ever going to hurt us more. We've seen anti-imperialist outlets like Mint Press News debanked in recent years, Consortium News too off of PayPal. We've seen Stripe demonetize Substackers. We've seen YouTube demonetize creators who challenge establishment narratives. Like this channel that you're probably watching on right now, Indie News Network. Demonetization is not democratic, it's corporate fascism. Can we get that tattooed somewhere on like the CEO of YouTube's head or something? That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Trump recently announced that free speech is back in America and called out the Democrats for trying to jail political opponents, but then he posted this on Truth Social, quote, all federal funding will stop for any college, school, or university that allows illegal protests, let alone that there are no illegal protests. Agitators will be imprisoned or permanently sent back to the country from which they came. American students will be permanently expelled or, depending on the crime, arrested. No masks so that we can facial recognition you. Thank you for your attention to this matter, douchebag.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I find it interesting that there were not very many retweets or likes on that, at least when it had been screen capped. It must have been very early on after he posted it, because I'm sure there were a ton of sycophants and bots that ended up swarming and doing that. There are some protections from debanking in the U.S., but of course, Trump wants to remove those puny protections. Once they're gone, you can expect to see anti-imperialists targeted for censorship like pro-Palestinian immigrants and protesting university students. That means us, guys. Expect to see a situation where the likes of PayPal and Stripe are blocking the payments of writers and journalists who offer alternative perspectives, which is exactly how we tell you to support us. Expect to see a more censored internet. And while you may think this will only happen in the U.S., Europeans have been making their own moves to censor the internet. This means writers like Ricky could be screwed either way. We face the very real risk of losing our livelihoods simply because we're telling the truth. The politicians who criticize China for censoring the internet have outsourced their own censorship to corporations. They privatized our right to speak like they privatized everything else. The last thing we need is more corporate control over our lives. And big shout out to Ricky over there. Give him a follow. Yep, so depressing to see what's ahead. Can't agree more, unfortunately. But again, Trump continuing that same level of censorship, if not higher, just in different ways. And it's only affecting different people. So, welcome to the future. Shit where you please. The Wi-Fi's killer, but there's no more bees. All right?
I thought there was no more knees.
No,
They
there's
take
definitely
away your
more
knees.
knees. They don't take away your knees. No, that's Wally. All right.
Oh.
Did this person speak
Yeah,
out
or
when
the
people were
mafia.
debanked for going against the COVID narrative? A lot of people did speak out. A lot of independents certainly spoke out because they saw what was coming.
Next, we have this clip Sam Tripoli and his guest Richard Gage.
Oh, it's fascinating. We are manipulated with disinformation from over the since the beginning of this country, probably.
Yeah.
Certainly at the start of the Civil War and on when America became a corporation and they started manipulating us radically. It's just been really bad. But that's why I start, by the way, to reduce this shock with something that most people don't even know about. In fact, Sam, most architects and engineers know nothing about the third worst structural failure in modern history. And this happened on 9/11. It's not one of the Twin Towers. It's the third skyscraper that came down. And we go to conferences all over the country, and we have our booth, and we show on a screen Building 7 coming down. And we go, do you know what this is? And the architects go, well, that's a controlled demolition. Well, you're darn right. Did you know when it happened? No, that happened on 9/11. What? That's not one of the Twin Towers. No, it certainly isn't. It's dwarfed, in fact, next to the Twin Towers. But the Twin Towers were the tallest buildings in the world when they were designed. But this building would be the tallest building in most of our states. It's huge. Each floor is an acre in size. Ooh. It was about, a football field in length away from the North Tower. And when the North Tower went down that morning, some of the beams actually hit this building. So there was an investigation, but by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, who was tasked by Congress to explain these collapses to the American people. And they said, no, the damage, it wasn't the damage from the building. Well, what was it? We'll find out. But take a look at this collapse. I mean, many people have never seen this before. Again, this should have been the most studied failure in history. It's the third worst structural failure after the Twin Towers in modern history. And so here it goes down smoothly, symmetrically. Have you ever seen that before?
Never, dude. That is so crazy. We just accepted that. Just like,
well,
fired.
We didn't. No, they didn't even show it on TV except for 2 occasions. And then 7 years later, they had this insane presentation. It was surreal by Shyam Sunder of NIST. This is what he says.
What we found was that uncontrolled building fires caused an extraordinary event. The collapse of World Trade Center 7 was primarily due to fire.
Oh my God, man. How do you say that?
Should we look at those fires? Here they are, Sam. They're few, they're small, and they're scattered throughout the building. These are the worst fires that we have in the building. And so NIST says, yeah, those fires brought it down. In fact, here's how bad those fires were. They're, up till almost the time of the collapse, they're burning completely, engulfing this northeast corner of the building near column 79, which they fault as buckling and causing the complete collapse of this building. Well, guess what? Those fires are burned out on that floor at that time where they're showing them completely engulfed.
Wow.
So it's a complete lie. And that's just the beginning of their lies. I mean, look at the history of fires in high-rise buildings. We've not lost one steel frame fire-protected structure ever in history due to fire. Not before 9/11 here, not after 9/11. And there's dozens and dozens of much hotter, larger, and longer-lasting buildings.
Look at that middle one. That thing's done.
And those none of those collapsed.
No.
None of them collapsed.
No.
Not one. Not one that even looked like them. Not in a steel frame, fire protected building, which is most all of these skyscrapers. So we got to ask ourselves, what did bring this building down? Take a look. Let's compare it to a known controlled demolition, a series of on the left, building 7 on the right.
To the T.
Hey, is there any similarity? Is there enough similarity to warrant an investigation into the possible use of explosives?
Is there anything that isn't similar?
Can I just say, this is almost more professionally done than some of the controlled demolitions we're seeing on the left.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It looks cleaner.
You're totally right. You're totally right,
Dude,
Johnny. Like that one doesn't even. Yeah, you're totally right.
Some of them
Johnny.
are falling out of time. You can see kind of
They're
one
not
side
falling
is going
like
through,
in a unit.
They did a great job with this controlled demolition. I have to say,
I mean,
fantastic.
They must be proud of themselves. And in this case, they're not going to be tried for murder and treason, because this building, according to the official narrative anyway, had nobody in it when it went down. Almost did. I'll show you a couple of them who almost lost their lives in there. So we have to ask ourselves, well, what are the features of controlled demolition? Here they are. And does Building 7 have any of those in its destruction? Well, let's start at the beginning. Feature number 1. Is there a sudden onset of destruction? Here's Dan Rather using his intuition on that afternoon or evening to try to understand what's happening.
What you're seeing are high shots. Now, here we're going to show you a videotape of the collapse.
This is a CBS News.
Yeah. Yeah, the day of, night of.
It's amazing. Amazing, incredible, pick your word. For the third time today, it's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before, when a building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
Damn.
Whoa!
He said it right there on national television.
For those listening at home, that was a CBS News video story.
You'll never see that again.
With it's unbelievable. Dan Rather calling it in real time.
Yeah, well, and he's seen the old hotels in Las Vegas, right? We all have. So we have a frame of reference for this destruction, which is why they sweep it under the rug and have never showed it, except for maybe 2 times on mainstream television. Again, this should have been the most studied structural failure ever. Feature number 2, is there a straight down symmetrical collapse? Let's look from West Street. Pretty darn straight down and symmetrical. How do you do that, Sam? You got to take out all the core columns within a fraction of a second of each other, followed about a second later by the perimeter columns. And you got to ask yourself, do these fires have that capability of that precision to take all those columns out?
So uneven.
Hey, if you... What?
The fires are so uneven. Yeah, you're
they're completely uneven. They're scattered. They're few. They're small. Look what happens if you don't get controlled demolitions just right. Instead of going down, it rolls on to the next building.
Wow, you're right.
Or it doesn't go all the way over. Somebody's got to go back in and fix that controlled demolition.
Imagine if that's your job.
They did a great job. Again,
if a building is damaged on one side or a corner, like in Building 7, it will fall over. And that's what happens. We expect that. This is natural.
If you're listening, we're watching building just fall over on their side.
And this one, for those who saw Dog Man, this is exactly looks like the movie, but the one building is falling over into the other building.
Oh man, it's incredible.
Is there a high rise that actually went down with fire so we can compare? Is there any high rise there's none ever like in the whole in other countries?
There is a high rise that was not a type 1 fire protected steel frame structure, which most all of them are, but one in Brazil, Sao Paulo, it went down, but it had incredible fuel loads, no fire protection on the steel whatsoever, and it had concrete main pillars. It's just not comparable whatsoever. So we got to ask ourselves now, how fast did this building come down? Well, David Chandler, physics teacher, measured it, and many others did too. It comes down at free fall. How fast is that? That's as fast as a bowling ball falling out of the sky. no resistance, getting faster and faster every second, the definition of acceleration. But what is that happening through? Well,
oh my God!
30,000 tons of structural steel, 3 to 5 times stronger than it needed to be to hold that building up. This is an incredible structure.
You guys
And yet-
listening at home, I can't express to you how shocking it is how much steel was used to build this foundation.
And what do you call these beams? Because some of those were in width, the height of a man, like as tall as a man is in width.
Yeah, the vertical ones are columns, and those are the ones that resist the loads of the building falling straight down. And yet you're going to see that not one of these columns or these beams, the horizontal ones, gave any resistance. And NIST even acknowledges this after denying it for 7 years. They put out their final report. They were forced to admit that it did come down at free fall because of David Chandler, Stephen Jones, and other scientists who said, no, this is easily measurable. You have to acknowledge this. Well, NIST finally, in their report, they slipped this in there. Okay, yeah, it came down for a third of its fall in free fall. Well, what does that mean? That means that not one of these 81 columns in this building gave any resistance for a third of its fall. Now, where did they go? Did these fires take those columns out? What's going on here? We're going to get to the bottom of it. Don't worry. Because what we see is that those columns are completely dismembered, one from another. It falls like a house of cards, this building. A 47-story moment-resisting steel frame building. All the columns and beams have been severed, so it could fall like a house of cards in a 4 to 6 story pile. Buildings that collapse naturally do not do that. You can recognize the building. The columns and beams are not severed one from another. The concrete is not pulverized to a fine powder, which we can look at too. Can these fires cause that building to do that? No, again. So we have to say, what can? Well, let's listen to a series of witnesses who heard what? Explosions.
Oh, my God.
This is Daryl, a medical student.
We were watching the building actually because it was on fire. The bottom floors of the building were on fire, and we heard this sound that sounded like a clap of thunder. Turned around, we were shocked to see that the building was it looked like there was a shock wave ripping through the building, and the windows all busted out. And it was horrifying. And then about a second later, the bottom floor caves out. And the building followed after that, and we saw the building crash down all the way to the ground.
A sound of a clap of thunder, a shock wave ripping through the building, the windows busting out, and then the building coming down about a second later. Pretty darn exacting of a controlled demolition. How about Kevin McPadden, former Air Force medic?
You heard explosions, like boom. It's like a distinct sound. It's not like when in compression, like boom, 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 like floors that were dropping and collapsing. This was boom, and like you felt a rumble in the ground, like almost like you wanted to grab onto something. That, to me, I knew that was an explosion. There was no doubt in my mind.
That's pretty clear. What did Bill Rosati see?
I was standing like 2 blocks away, and all of a sudden I just seen a big flash, and then I seen the building coming down, and I just seen people just running everywhere.
A flash?
Chaotic.
Okay, this is getting more interesting. Listen to Captain Richard Patterson of the FDNY.
1-7 let go as well, and was a series of concussive explosions.
And Patrick Dillon, first responder.
I remember feeling that like it was like freight trains underneath the earth, shaking the earth, even shaking me. That's when we all saw Building 7 crumple in the middle, like way up at the top. It buckled and then dropped.
Okay. How about Richard Ratans, who was the New York City Office of Emergency Management Deputy Director? He went into the building at about noon, and this is his experience.
And then he had to go into that building to assess it.
You could hear the building creak above us. You could hear things fall. You could hear the fire burning. You can see columns just hanging from the upper floors, gaping holes in the floors up above us. There was an elevator car that was blown out of its shaft and it was down the hall.
Whoa!
An elevator car blown out of the shaft 30 feet, he clarified later, down the hall. Imagine the explosion that it would take to blow an elevator cab out of its shaft, landing 30 feet down the hall.
Wow. Wait, when did he go in? Relative to the...
This was at noon, and it was after the towers collapsed, certainly. But these explosions are experienced before the towers collapsed, as you'll see in a moment. And what they claim, NIST claims this was damage due to when the beams hit the outside of the building. But he's talking about interior of the building, not the outside. Floors, gaping holes in them up above him, columns dangling, and this elevator shaft. Well, listen to Barry Jennings describe his and Mayor Giuliani's attorney, Michael Hess, their experience. They were called to an emergency meeting on the 23rd floor where the emergency management center was, and everybody had been evacuated out of the building by the time they got there, but they didn't know it. What? They went up to the 23rd floor. They found it empty. None of the towers had come down yet until after they had this experience.
When we got to the 8th floor, I started walking to one side of the building. That side of the building was gone. The first explosion I heard when I was on the stairwell landing, when we made it down to the 6th floor. Then we made it back to the 8th floor. I heard some more explosions.
What's the sound?
Like a boom, like an explosion.
And more than one?
Yes. We started walking down the stairs. We made it to the 8th floor.
Oh my
Big
God.
explosion. Blew us back into the 8th floor. When we get outside, a police officer comes to me and says, you have to run. We have more information of bombs, so you have to run.
Well, when they got outside, the towers had already collapsed. So this was well before the towers collapsed. Why are they saying there's information of bombs? Bombs like this heard in the late morning of 9/11?
When we got to the 8th.
Yeah, here's one of the guys who can tell you I'm okay, all right? Here, hold on. You want to call your mother or something?
Whoa!
You gotta get back.
Whoa, okay,
This
for those listening, that was two guys on the phone calling family, tell them that they're okay, and then all of a sudden they hear a giant explosion. They turn around in shock. Wow!
You got to watch this.
This is in the late morning of 9/11 near Building 7. And NIST says, there's no witnesses of explosions. They claim to have interviewed over 100 first responders. And they missed not only these, but the 156 I'm gonna show you as well. It's crazy.
Now let's jump to a host with a deeper voice than my AI voice, the one and only Nature Boy himself with guests Chris Graves and Weezy.
This is a great show, too.
Yeah, I've read about 10 books now on the Lincoln assassination, and I feel like a goddamn wizard, bro. And it sounds arrogant to say that, but I'll sit down with any Lincoln assassination researcher, and I'll go toe to toe with them. Put that fucking nerd James Swanson in front of me, I'll fucking smack his ass around. Fuck that bitch in his fucking 4 eyes. I'll fuck him up. And it sounds arrogant, but that's how learned and well-versed I am on the subject. And the man that got me going down that rabbit hole was David McGowan.
So how did
Never
he
once.
I'm curious, what book, and sorry to interrupt, but I want you to continue on with this. I've been wanting to know what was it? What did he write a book? Was it a video?
Yeah,
what was it?
I have it. If you go to my podcast player, I did the audiobook version of the Lincoln assassination. So if you don't got time to read it, I'll fucking read it to you. Now, here's a caveat. I got so hooked as soon as I started reading it, I'm like, fuck, I want to do an audiobook of this. And so I got the names wrong. In the first part, I say deponent instead of deponent. So there's a couple little mistakes. But what I'm trying to get at, why did I dive into that bitch? David McGowan is the one that inspired me. He started writing all the weird ass coincidences, all the crazy shit. Never in a million years did I ever see myself being fascinated by something that happened 160 years ago. The thing that McGowan does, though, he brings up modern shit and ties it in, and you can relate to it, like 9/11. Like, for example, why did Wilkes Booth decide to murder Lincoln in a crowded theater when Lincoln was known to take walks alone in the park? He could have killed him easily there, you know. Why did he choose in front of a fucking audience? Why were the 9/11 attacks done on the Twin Towers in front of the fucking TVs and everything? You want a fucking spectacle. Yes, that's why these things are fucking done. And so McGowan does that. Now, I took that same spirit that McGowan brought, and I've taken my own taste to it. Like I've made some Epstein connections to the Lincoln assassination. One of the things that I'm the only one to bring up, and it's because of me going deep into the Lincoln assassination. When the Trump assassination happened,
yeah, that's right.
What happened? What saved him? What saved him? He turned his head at just the right moment, and that's what saved him. In the Lincoln assassination, so Lincoln is sitting next to a wall right here. Okay. Booth comes from behind, and he's a right-hander trying to make that fucking shot. You can't make it. You got to twist your fucking palm like a faggot and try to get that shot off. It's not going to happen.
Oh, Weezy.
So historians, to accommodate that bullshit, they have to speculate. That's what it is. It's speculation. There's no evidence to back up this bullshit thing that historians have to add. They say that Lincoln turned his head at just the wrong moment, and that's what got him killed. Trump survives. Lincoln gets smoked because of that turning of the head. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, holy fucking shit. And that little thing of Lincoln or of Trump surviving that shot like a boss and weak ass Lincoln dying it's kind of similar to, remember when people were giving Trump shit for criticizing John McCain, and they're like, he was a POW, he was an American.
I don't respect pussies that get caught. Something like that.
Yeah. It's the same shit, bro. Like, he survives the gunshot because he turns his head, but pussy ass Lincoln got smoked.
Went there a couple false alarms before where he thought that somebody was taking a shot in stage, and he just ran like a little bitch. He didn't get up and go fight. No, like he did on this one. Yeah. Hey, when it comes down to the assassination, I don't know exactly what happened, man. But dude, and I know about ballistics. I've been in the military. I grew up around guns, right? You know, you don't take a 5.56 .223, pierce the ear, right? And 10 days later have an unmolested fucking ear. It just doesn't happen, especially people that age. Hydroshock, there would have been much more damage. Even the damage that it's there, it would have bled like a stuck pig. So his hand would have been covered with blood. So much blood all over my hands and everywhere. But you look at the photos, ain't no blood on his hands. A couple little streaks here. It almost, if I'm going to speculate and just go into fantasy land, I look at that wound, and that wound looks more like a shrapnel wound than it does a bullet wound. A shrapnel wound, right? It makes complete sense. There's no hydroshock. It's just a little piece of metal or glass, because some people have said speculated that's come from one of those glass viewer thingamabobbers. That would make complete sense. Nick. Oh, so you got a little bit of blood, and then the fact that, it's hard to say what's going on. Was he in on it or not? But when I just step back, I'm like, why did he get up there and staged with the female who was the shortest person on his security detail, up above her, well above her, going, fight. I'm like, bro,
he was in on it, bro. I'll say
he was in on it.
He was in on it.
I'll say it too. Yeah, he was in on it.
It looks like a WWE wrestling match, man.
The people that try to say that it was a deep state miss have to account for, okay, if the Secret Service wasn't on it, that motherfucker would have got smoked right there and then. It would not have missed.
If it was a real hit, he would have been smoked.
Yeah,
they would have had
easily,
multiple
bro.
teams if they wanted to take his ass
You
out.
miss with that motherfucker? Don't worry. We got a plan B. We got a plan C. We got a plan D, E, F, G, elemental P, all that fucking bullshit.
And if that shit don't work,
There were 3 to 5 other shooters. So if they really wanted him dead,
yeah,
he would have been dead. Yeah.
So that's just why I have, let's just say, reservations on the official story on the assassination. But I don't want to get caught up on Orange Jesus. That's a whole nother show.
Orange Jesus.
But yeah. There is
mean,
correlations, like you said, when these people symbology, and this is, I'm getting a little funky out there, but I like to get funky when you're talking about people who plan these. Many times they're occultists, and they're parts of secret society. So symbology is everything. So a little thing such as a pair of shoes that are strung on a power wire at a shooting has very, very strong significance that to the average person would not even recognize. And if they did, well, they get their media whores on there to tell them that they're fucking crazy.
And David, what is that? Ollie, what's his name?
Ollie Oxenfree? Ollie Oxenfree.
You know who I'm talking about. Ollie that works with Fetzer.
Holy Demigard?
Demigard, yeah. He talks about the shoes, the piles of shoes at certain scenes, like being tells for a lot of these incidents.
I mean, getting back to David McGowan.
Please, let's go back.
The reason I only brought up the Trump assassination is because I was looking at it through the David McGowan lens. You know what I'm saying? Like, I said it at the very beginning. Like, a lot of people get caught up with the Thomas, or the Matthew Crooks and bringing this and that. And I'm like, no, man, that's all red herring bullshit. The whole thing was fake. So that's the same spirit, man. But McGowan was a genius in pointing out things that were easy to miss if you weren't looking for it. But once he pointed them out, you're like, fuck. How come I didn't see that? As we're gonna see at the very end with the Boston Marathon bombing. The Boston Marathon bombing was one of those events that I remember. It was in 2013 because I was firefighting at the time, and I flew out to visit my brother. His wife was dying of brain cancer, so we went to visit her for the last time. And when we were heading back, we were staying at a hotel, and the Boston Marathon bombing. So that's how I connected. That's why I remember it so vividly.
And Weezy, I was flying back from to Logan Airport literally 8 hours later. So I saw all the state troopers with their AK-47s like patrolling the airport like it was 9/11. So I remember it. So you're right. Like, everything was locked down. Obama was doing like a State of the Union address, talking about all that stuff. Literally, like, less than 8 hours later.
And when I saw it on the TV, it was one of those. I was a normie, so I'm like, fuck, man, I can't believe this happened. I remember seeing the Jeff Bowman. The Jeff Bowman's a dude that allegedly got his fucking legs blown off, getting wheelchair, and I didn't think twice about it, bro. I just accepted. I'm like, man, this is evil. This is horrific. Who the fuck would do this? You know what I'm saying? And all these years later, I look at them like, this is fucking theatrics, man, on the world stage, man. And when I started dipping my toes into the conspiratorial world, I wanted to be a realist, man. I didn't want to talk about no fucking lizard peoples and all that bullshit. I wanted real fucking shit, man. Yeah. And when I first started getting in, I was like, there's a lot of conspiracies going on, but not everything is fucking fake and gay. Now that I'm going deep, man, everything seems fucking fake and gay.
It's my default position.
Well, can
until
I
proven otherwise.
Go ahead. Being here in Massachusetts, 4 days later, I was watching live on CNN when they so-called arrested the older brother.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
And by 6 a.m., they said that the younger brother ran him over with an SUV. Yep. But I have tapes of Boston residents in Watertown calling into like a sports AM sports radio show, talking about how they saw the Boston cops run over this guy with a police SUV.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all on record. And I shared that with Monica Perez on a couple of Boston bombing specials we did. It's all on record. Like literally, it was Boston residents saw the authorities kill this guy. And then they blamed it on the younger brother later on. And then the younger brother had a big slash mark on his neck that they were showing in all kinds of magazines.
Yeah, that when they pulled them up first, they lit that fucking little boat up, and I grew up on boats, right, like a Christmas tree.
Yeah,
and the dude survived it. And then, how did he get that slash mark on his neck? What? Huh?
Well, later on, Dave McGowan. We're talking about Dave McGowan. He would talk about the coverage of the Boston bombing trials and how they were only using sketches. They weren't allowing cameras in the courtroom. And the mother of these two Sarnov brothers said that that's not my son.
Kind of like when Saddam Hussein's wife came out of his fucking execution that says, I do not know who that man was that just died. That is not my husband.
Right. You are
this is Saddam's wife, and you're saying that his family members are going, hey, I don't know who the fuck that guy was in the courtroom.
Now, let's take a look at some highlights from AM Wake Up from this week. Make sure to support and share their show to keep this great channel going. Share the show. Share the show. Share the show.
Share the fucking show.
It is March 10th, 2025. What's happening, everybody? Good morning. I hope you had a good weekend and everything went the way that you wanted to. If not, then, they can't all be singers.
No, they cannot. It can be perfect all the time.
No. Lots going on. Lots to talk about. They replaced Justin Trudeau's bastard son with a different WEF puppet up in Canada. We'll definitely get into that. I thought maybe if my boss will let me. What's up, Charles? How's it going?
What up, man? How you doing? How you doing this Monday morning?
I am underslept. I am.
Ditto. Life happens.
I thought maybe we could start it off with some jokes. Oh, and by the way, Indy, because I see you in the chat right now. StreamYard isn't letting me connect to get the INN channel. I have a little like red exclamation mark, and I've tried to reconnect a couple of times. I may have to remove it and then try to re-add it. I don't know. Every day it's something with a streaming platform, or StreamYard, or every single fucking day. But Charles is the boss. You guys didn't know? Charles has actually he's been running the show from the behind the scenes for the last fucking 7 years.
Yeah, you didn't know this?
This was a gradual introduction.
You know that?
I didn't think you guys would be okay with me having a black boss, but now it's time to let it all out. No, it is
what it is, folks. Steve is my slave. Steve is my employee.
It's Charles in charge. It is. Yes. Yeah, you thought it was Scott Baio. No, it's this
Scott Baio. No, it's not Scott Baio. It's not that golden looking nigga, that brown looking Latino semi-Greek. It's not him. It's been me the whole time.
The whole time, you guys. The whole time. And you didn't even know. You didn't know. You thought I was just some dude ranting into a microphone. No, man. No. He sends me talking points. I got to do push-ups every time there's a fucking video playing. It's wild. It is.
It's boot camp.
I thought we could open with a little bit of Patrice. And also, I agree that the date of this particular holiday should be moved from the second Tuesday or the Tuesday before Thanksgiving to Patrice's birthday. But yeah, now they're just gonna run wild with "You're my handler," and this has been going on for years. I love this shit. I really do. I do.
Yeah.
Let's discuss harassment for a second. Let's just, you feel it a little bit? Like, let's just discuss it. Why can't I harass you? Sometimes. I can never harass you, never. And I'm not talking about, like, I'm talking just, at the job. It's unfair that I can't harass you at the workplace. Like, you looking how you looking, and I can't just a little something that has to do, like, you got to be careful just to say, hey, you look beautiful today. That's how messed up the game is. I think you should be able to comment on any part of the body that you see. If you, I'm serious. What's your name? What's your name? Jeannie. Now, Jeannie, no disrespect, but if I work with you, I should be able to walk in and go, oh, Jeannie, beautiful titty meat you have there. And because I see that, but whatever the scientific term is, I'm looking at Mr. A 4.9 grade point average. What's the science term for the titty meat? What's the actual? And it's not the cleavage. I mean, the cleavage is the space in the middle. I'm talking about the meat, the meat, the titty part. And I'm not being foul, just, whoa. You know what I'm saying? Just so I can go through the rest of the day without pretending that I don't see. Which you understand what I'm saying? I mean, let's work out a deal. Don't get me fired. Having women work with men, right, is like having a grizzly bear work with salmon. Dipped in honey, like, so now you dip the salmon in the honey, right? Grizzly bears, and the salmon get to walk through comfortable with honey and fish and good morning, grizzly bears. And the grizzly bears is like, hey, you can't even growl, like, what's up, fish? Oh my God, human resources. The grizzly bear just did grizzly bear stuff. So, like, I can't even go, hey, good morning, fish, good morning. Oh, I can't touch it, like, oh, look at that. Oh, let me just get a little bit of that fish, a little bit. Get that honey. Oh my God. Fish and honey, man. That's my favorite. Usually I kill fish and eat them and stuff, but I just wanted to just rub a little bit of that. God damn. That's oppressive. Like, you shouldn't even, and there's cameras everywhere. You can't do like weird stuff behind her back. Like, why would it be disrespectful? I said, what's your name? Terrell. If I go, hey, Terrell, we work together. And I go, Terrell, hey, do me a favor. Let me know when you're getting up to go to the bathroom so I can sniff your chair. disrespectful because it's sexual, but that keeps me from being like, I think there should be a holiday, for lack of a better word, harassment day, but not, that sounds whatever. But I mean a day where I get to find out, like, because, and this is why it should be harassment day, because women get to be inappropriate sexually all the time. You get to be inappropriate. And when I say inappropriate, I mean say hello to me too close. Hi. Or some weird massage because you think we're friends and you, good morning, little kiss, and he's just like, oh boy, boy. And you think in your head, man, I wonder if I But harassment day allows you to be able to ask all year. I say the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And it's a beautiful day, flowers and everything. You buy flowers, you just real cool. You walk up, you're respectful. You say, hey, how are you? You know, good afternoon, Terrell. Happy harassment day. And you just like say, listen, I was wondering all year if you would suck my dick in the broom closet. And you just be like, no, thank you, I'm not. And you be like, thank you, keep the flowers. I just thought I made a mistake. I thought you was a hoe all year. I was confused. I thought you was a hoe, but you're not.
God bless Patrice O'Neal.
Yeah, dude. Imagine if that man was still alive, dude.
I think about that from time to time. I really do, because I'm on record saying I would be nervous if Carlin had been alive during COVID.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed a trend in older comedians specifically, and also older entertainers, where Trump got into office the first time and they just lost their fucking minds.
Yeah.
And they went full blown into Trump derangement syndrome. I saw a thing over I think yesterday with Jello Biafra, and everybody knows that Jello triggers my situational Tourette's.
Right.
Because I grew up on, punk rock. I grew up on Dead Kennedys, Bad Religion, Agent Orange, shit like that, and I saw Jello looking like, God, now I can't even find it. He looked like Guy Clark fucked John Goodman.
Oh, wow.
He's just a fat guy with a lesbian haircut. He's a fat guy with a lesbian haircut who can't stop talking about Donald Trump. And it's like, dude, you dedicated police truck to Dianne Feinstein because she was the fucking mayor of San Francisco at the time.
People grow, Steve. People change, opinions change.
He definitely grew.
Think about Rage Against the Machine. You go from raging against the machine to raging for the machine to, telling people to mask up, vax up,
I watched Tom Morello bitch out over and over and like, that wasn't us, it was the venue. We just had to do what the venue told us to do. Oh, so you were just following orders? Yeah?
Yes, I was following the orders.
I mean, come on, dude. I did what if you wanted to, you could have played in a field. You could have did what Dave Chappelle did, where you had an outdoor event, and yeah, man, maybe the chairs were comically spread apart, but you still could have played that shit, and people didn't have to mask up, and they didn't have to show the papers, and shit like that.
Yeah, that's not fortunate. It's sad that a lot of fish did it, and that shit breaks my heart. It's fucking unfortunate, man. All
Fish
the
took a
driving
whole
bullshit.
bunch of PPP money too.
Yeah, dude.
Like 1.2 million the fish took in the PPP loans.
Yep, your heroes ain't your heroes, really. They jammed the fuck out, but goddamn, those the ethics don't align. We're not on the same page,
Yeah. Okay, so there were people talking about it in the chat. I don't really want to talk about the dude necessarily. The whole Ian Carroll thing on the Joe Rogan show. I don't want to relitigate that. We did that on Thursday. Go back and watch it if you missed it.
Right.
But something that is interesting to me is the Eric Prince phone thing. And not because, okay, so Ian's excuse for shilling for a war criminal / Unit 8200 phone was, I didn't look into it. Okay. You have essentially taught classes on how to research.
Yeah.
You would think that before you mention some shit, you would have looked into it, but maybe you're an airhead. Maybe you're an incurious idiot. Maybe you just don't think things through all the way. And the reason you're putting out 2 or 3 videos a week is because it takes you 4 days to edit. Maybe that's it. But current Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, is a different story.
Yeah.
And this on the Joe Rogan show is Tulsi Gabbard shilling for the Eric Prince phone.
Have you heard of this unplugged phone that Eric Prince is doing?
Yeah, I have heard of it.
It's interesting. I just got one. I haven't set it up yet, but it is what they're saying is the most secure means of communication. Obviously, technology is never 100% secure, but the fact that it does not have the same ad ID numbers that every one of our other phones has, Apple, Samsung, whatever, makes it so that we are able to protect more of our information than we would otherwise.
You're right, but do you get to use apps with that? Can you use Instagram?
They have their own operating system and their own apps, but you can also download whatever apps you want to download.
But if you download
and they're
Instagram,
the settings you are able to actually make it so that Instagram is not able to collect the kind of data that they would otherwise.
Really?
Yes.
So what is it operating on? Like is it like graphene?
Just
like,
Israeli intelligence.
I haven't set it up yet. It is an operating system. They got the guy who, as their CTO, who created the Pegasus system.
Oh, great! You can trust him.
That was my question.
If you're gonna make, well, first of all, if you're gonna
there's
make
two sides
a
of that.
honeypot phone,
yeah, there's two sides of that. Is if you created it, then ideally you would know how to protect against it.
Wait a minute, dude. Joe, actually, if you get the honeypot phone, and now you've got the current National Director of National Intelligence, like shilling for it. Directly shilling for it.
Oh my god, dude! It's before you keep going. I mean, like Joe's intuitive reaction was to go to that.
Yeah.
Upon hearing who is backing this, his intuitive reaction was to LOL right in her face.
Yeah.
Ian Carroll sat right across from him and said the same thing. And what did that nigga do?
Oh yeah, no, it's a good phone.
Okay. Got it. Got it. But both of them are pushing this garbage though. They're both pushing the phone. They're both pushing a fucking obvious. It's Intel. It's something Israel. Something Unit 82. We all know, but it's like, wow, incredible. Tulsi Gabbard, psychological warfare, is now pushing Israeli phones. Thanks, ma'am. Thanks for serving your nation.
People get really mad at me when I point out that she ran civilian psyops for the Army National Guard.
Yeah. I mean, she did. Why are you mad about that? She did.
Why are you mad at me for that? Why aren't you mad at her for that? You know,
it is what it is. She did.
I noticed that the people who went like super deep in the paint for RFK Jr. when he was running for president, like, was just the Tulsi cult kind of shifted over into a new candidate. Like the same people that thought that she hovered 2 inches above the ground and wore a white robe at all times and just sort of floated along through the atmosphere. They had the same energy for Bobby.
Yeah.
Politicians don't like you. I'm sorry.
No, they hate your guts.
I hate to be the one to tell you, but they do not like you. All right, let's.
Oh, by the way, isn't Tulsi a toady or whatever the fuck? Remember that shit?
Dude, that Barry White shit is hilarious still to this day. Absolutely fucking hilarious.
Wow.
Yeah, Indy, I don't know, man. They're not letting me connect to the channel today. It could be a error on StreamYard's end. It could be Twitter doesn't like it. I mean, yeah, it kind of. There's a lot of overlap with Bob. Okay, there we go. We're up now. Yay. But yeah, there's so much overlap between Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi, and there's a lot of overlap, significant overlap between the people who, you know, drop to the ground immediately and face whatever direction Tulsi Mecca is.
Mecca. Tulsi's Mecca.
And I don't know if that's her ass or her titties. I don't. I really don't.
It's both, including that gray greed, the rogue. She's got the rogue.
Oh, they have to be facing whatever side the gray streak is.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
The wandering gray streak.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm not doing that, DC. I'm looking here in StreamYard at all of the different channels that we're running on, going, oh, hey, we're not running on this one because there's a bright red exclamation point going, you're not connected. So inside of StreamYard, I'm trying to connect. It's okay, buddy. It's okay. Anyway, let's see if we can get through the next 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes, for sure. Or you would say, look, the kind of people that want a phone like this, these rah, fuck the government people, like these type of people that might get visited by the FBI, give them a phone, call it the Patriot phone or whatever the fuck you want to call it. So and make it a nice little honeypot. I'm not saying that it is.
No. Well, so I asked them, like, it sounds like this is the perfect kind of phone for people in the military or people who are conducting different kinds of operations because of all of these protections and so on and so forth. And they said they're intentionally not selling to the U.S. government because they don't want that doubt to be in people's minds that this is some kind of op that's happening that will allow some kind of surveillance to take place. Anyway, it's interesting.
That is interesting. There are other phones that do that. There's phones that operate on an operating system called Graphene OS. So you take a phone like a Google phone and they de-Google it. So they remove all the Google stuff, and then there's a bunch of detailed instructions of how to do it.
Right.
And then they put this new operating system on, and when the new operating system works, all your shit doesn't work. Like all the normal Google services and all that stuff. It's a completely different operating system.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there's they have figured out how to do both. You can toggle on and off what mode you want to be in, and it's got the VPNs and everything else.
And that's the suspicious hippo face. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suspicious hippo face. Like,
You should be suspicious of that. Oh, you can just toggle on and off between, arguably one of the largest surveillance apparatuses ever created.
Yes.
And hey, don't worry, that VPN that they tacked onto it was built by Israeli NSA. But hey, it's okay because war criminal and mercenary Eric Prince is Tulsi. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. He really is looking.
Nigga said he come to share with a pork chop. Hilarious.
He really is looking like half a fucking Sideshow Bob, man. He really is.
Wow. Yeah. That's our reality.
Let's see. There's a couple of things I want to jump to before the Trudeau thing. But do you have anything you wanted to highlight this morning, my friend?
Yeah, actually, there was from the Trump side, kind of Israel related. Oh, you know what, man? Yeah, Israel related, I should say. It's Trump's envoy, to the like Israel, the Middle East, talking about Hamas and having peace talks with Hamas, and the view. I just want to get your take on this. Let's just watch the video and get your just immediate reaction. Well, let me share my screen. It's up if you want to share it, bro.
Here we go. I'm trying.
Okay.
Oh, I have to pull that to do that. Okay, there we go.
All right.
Presidential envoy for hostage affairs, Adam Bowler, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Thanks, Fred.
Yeah, this is Adam Bowler giving his take on Hamas and U.S. Hostage. Just the current Hamas situation.
I want to start here with a report. A reporter out of Channel 12 in Israel, citing an Israeli source, says that U.S. Hamas talks over hostages, quote, have failed. Fact or fiction? Where can you give us an update this morning?
I actually think they were very productive talks. They identified some opportunity to come together because we're always asking Israel, Hamas, how's it going to win? What does it look afterward? And I think they provided some very interesting views there in the discussions.
Interesting views that can lead you to a release or an impasse.
Yeah, I mean, really, my goal is to release prisoners. I focused on our alive American, Adi Alexander, and our 4 dead Americans, getting them home as soon as possible, and how important that was to the president, to President Trump. But we also discussed what the end might look like. And I will tell you that Hamas did orient toward a long-term truce, as they called it, a truce where they would be disarmed, a truce where they would not be part of the political policy, and a truce where we would ensure that they are in a place where they can't hurt Israel. Part of that was rebuilding Gaza, but the discussions revolved around a few things that I think might actually end up being some of what you see post Steve Witkoff.
How difficult is it to sit down with the leaders of an organization that torture, that murder people? I mean, the most recent example that has grabbed hearts and minds are the children, the Beebus children, 4 years old, 9 months old. Do you worry that having direct conversations with them gives?
I'm going to pause there for a second. Ryan Cristian of The Last American Vagabond has gone extensively in depth about the Beebus family and the children and all this, and the father making, all these statements that the family was indeed the cause of their death was Israel, not Hamas. And the father's on record saying that. He's still saying that, I believe. That's still a thing. It's like the media is still spinning the record, though. And here we are in real time, you know, touching on that. So side note, shout out to Ryan of course, TLAV. But here it is, still being discussed.
Is this group any kind of veneer of respectability or legitimacy on the world stage?
First and foremost, it is hard. I listen to the families' stories. I hug the families when we bring them home, which is unbelievable. And I know exactly what happened. So you walk into there and you kind of have to block it out emotionally, because I'm under no auspices. As much as someone might smile or give me a coffee as we talk, that doesn't mean that they didn't do what they do. My belief then is dialogue is very important. I think I follow the President of the United States. Everybody said he couldn't go to North Korea. He sits with North Korea. You have real discussions. Dialogue does not mean giving things. Dialogue doesn't mean giving millions or billions of dollars like the prior administration did. Dialogue means sitting, hearing what someone wants, and then identifying, does it fit with what we want or not? And then how can you get somewhere in the middle and not have a war? And I think those kind of dialogues are very important to the president, because as he constantly says, he doesn't want war. War is a last resort. He wants a peaceful world. And so what I'm trying to do is say, one, how can I get our hostages out as soon as possible? I feel every single day when they're not out. And then how do you create the circumstances to stop this war?
So obviously there's a lot of widespread reporting that Israel did not like this idea of the U.S. having direct talks with Hamas, that they in fact found out once it was already underway or it had happened. You got a call from Ron Dermer, the head of their strategic affairs. It was described as a very heated phone call. Only you can tell us what actually happened on that call. Why did the U.S. move ahead with these direct talks knowing Israel had objections? And where would you say the relationship is now post the Dermer phone call?
I would say that the Israelis were kept informed. I did have a discussion with Ron. Ron raised some concerns, and quite frankly, it's totally fair for Israel to have concerns if we're having direct contacts with Hamas. For all he knows, he doesn't know me. Maybe I would meet them and say, they seem like such nice guys. You know, let's have beer and chips with them. So I think there was concern.
Beer and chips.
To put him at ease,
okay.
That I wasn't going to go off. That it would be parameters that we would work on together. So I thought that stuff was natural, and there's no question in my mind that our greatest ally is Israel.
So Times of Israel says one of Israel's opposition points to the direct talks was its concern that the U.S. might lose interest in securing a broad hostage ceasefire deal once all American hostages are released. Can you speak to that concern? Is that something you discussed with Mr. Dermer?
Of course. Well, let me tell you something. Not that, but I discussed that with the president. And the president has been very clear that is all hostages. And so I will say, when you think about my job is to get all hostages home there, because the job was given to me by the president. I take my orders from the president of the United States. And so he's been very clear. And if you think about the American that was there and the bodies that are there, that was a pretense to bring everybody home. It wasn't a one-off where then United States, we care way too much about the region. If you see the survivors that went and saw the president in the Oval Office, that was a group of Americans, but a group of full Israelis. So we have made that commitment. Israel is a strong ally. If someone wants to take hostage to Israel, we feel it too.
So the president put up a stark warning on social media.
What are your thoughts on that, Steve? What are you, any comments?
Well, okay, number one, every accusation is a confession.
Okay.
Anytime you've got somebody that's working on behalf of the state of Israel, everything that comes out of their mouth is either lies or projection or, an admission via accusation. And this guy's hitting it out of the park as far as that's concerned. He really is. I doubt he'll ever address which is something that, every major Israeli media outlet has addressed, that there's no Hamas without Knesset funding, without Netanyahu giving them, significant dollars to go play with.
Yeah. I feel like the American public, specifically MAGA, are unaware of that. Everybody in Israel is fully aware of this as far as government goes. Here, our government's aware of it, but, just who cares? Like a USS Liberty type situation. Like, yeah, we know that happened, but, just chill on that. Just whatever. Just keep it on the low. Keep it on the down low. R. Kelly. You know what I'm saying? Keep it on the down low. Nobody has to know. Just shh, It's crazy.
How weird is it that R. Kelly and Diddy are locked up in the same jail right now?
Steve, it's a coincidence, bro. Coincidences, that's how the legal system just happened to work out,
But Jay-Z and his crazy witch wife get to fucking walk around unimpeded.
Yeah, well, Jay-Z's his witch wife, that's an understatement. Yeah, she's a sorceress, bro. But going deeper into that, like, remember, and I tried finding this I tried doing a basic Google search, which of course didn't find anything. It didn't yield anything. I'm pretty sure in my mind, I know that Jay-Z spoke in front of the UN. Why? I don't know. When? It must have been like 2000, let's just say 10 to 15, maybe somewhere there, maybe even 6 to 15. But I know Jay-Z spoke in front of the UN. And it's like, that nigga's he's got immunity, bro. It's like Wyclef. Like, these niggas are, they're good. Wyclef, they're good. They got diplomatic immunity,
Yeah,
so to speak.
Permanent hall pass.
So to speak, yeah. Let me finish this video out real quick.
With regard to Hamas and getting the hostages out, he said, turn them over or it's immediately over for you. He says a beautiful future awaits. But if you don't turn over the hostages, you are dead. Release the hostages now or there will be hell to pay later. What's the deadline and what's the hell to pay?
He didn't set a deadline, but let me just look at what he's done it before. I remember actually a week ago, I was in Baghdad, and there's a little mark of the spot right where Al Soleimani's car with an Iraqi in it, right where it was hit by 2 missiles. And there's a spot. We all got out to look at it. And I remember the day he did it. I actually happened to be the West Wing, but it was surprising. No one else would do it because they were afraid. And this is what I will say. It may seem like he makes empty threats until he carries out the threat. And then it's not so empty, and then you're dead. And
you're dead. And then it's not so empty, and then you're dead.
Okay.
And then let me and let me follow up with, so this is as of today, this story came out. Oh, you got it up? Okay, cool. Yeah, let me show this. Let me read that. So yeah, diffusing tensions, Trump administration agrees to coordinate Hamas talks with Israel. So, okay, so we are, we are trying this again. Netanyahu reportedly reassures Israeli cabinet that the White House has agreed to coordinate special envoy Adam Boehler, the guy we just saw, Adam Boehler's Hamas negotiations with Israel after his senior Israeli minister blasted the talks. And this is by World Israel News Staff. Okay, so the Trump administration has agreed to coordinate its efforts to secure the release of American hostages held in the Gaza Strip with Israel in an attempt to diffuse tensions between Washington and Jerusalem, which erupted last week after it was revealed that an American envoy had secretly initiated direct talks with Hamas. So is this guy rogue? Is that how it's going to be seen? Like, yeah, what kind of 5D, 33D chess is Adam playing? I mean, we just heard him. We know where his loyalty is. His loyalty is with Israel. So Israel's acting like they don't know about his secret talks with Hamas. Are we acting like really like Jerusalem and Washington are in talks about this envoy is out there? What's he doing talking to Hamas? Y'all didn't know about this? It's a secret? Okay.
It's a secret to basically everybody in the West because they're under very different propaganda.
Right. Yeah, yeah, basically. Yeah. Last week, two anonymous sources revealed to Axios that President Donald Trump's special envoy to the hostages, Adam Bowler, had opened a direct channel for talks with Hamas with the goal of securing the release of the 5 American hostages still held in the Gaza Strip, including one captive believed to still be alive. Israeli officials, who had not been informed of the talks, responded with outrage, privately chastising Bowler over the talks. Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, a close confidant of Prime Minister Benjamin Milošević, vented to Bowler in a phone call last week, shortly after the U.S. envoy had met in Doha, Qatar, with Hamas representative Khalil al-Hayya. On Sundays, however, Netanyahu reassured his cabinet that his government and the Trump administration had reached an understanding on the issue, resolving the diplomatic row. According to a report by Israel's national broadcaster, Kan, Milošević told ministers that the Trump administration had agreed to coordinate its diplomatic efforts vis-a-vis Hamas with Jerusalem. So let's just cut that short. There's talks taking place right now, obviously. Just perceived instability, perceived friction, maybe more reason to make these talks just go kaput, as they always do. Maybe more reason to cause fuckery, who knows? But there's your Middle East quick briefing. And we haven't even touched Syria or Al-Shara or all the goofy killings going on there right now. Right now, there's people getting fucking slaughtered.
Yeah, at the hands of
trying to figure out what to do.
At the hands of U.S., Turkey, and MI-6 backed militants.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
and yeah, I mean, I wanted to get into that a little bit. Well, Tucker had the Prime Minister of Qatar on his show.
Wow.
Specifically talking about the Hamas funding by Israel. And it is kind of interesting. Because this dude is a politician, so he's gonna do some politician shit.
Right.
But I mean, we've been reporting on this since like 2019 as far as the Knesset funding for Hamas goes. And it's wild to see it on mainstream media, because this is mainstream media. Whether or not people want to fully embrace that's up to you. But when the guy from Fox News doesn't leave the studio that Fox News built for him in his house, and where he's still under contract, and then Fox News buys the company that he's contracted with to do his podcast, that's the mainstream media. When Spotify gives you a $500 million contract, you're the mainstream media. Like, I don't fucking understand how people like get lost in the sauce on this, because dude, it's a pretty long walk between a multi-million-dollar, if not billion-dollar corporation that produces infotainment and, let's say, this particular value for value show.
Right.
So my sense is that part of the criticism and the confusion from Americans, I think two causes. One, you have a Hamas office here. Mm-hmm. And Hamas has been designated, I think, repeatedly by the U.S. government, certainly by the Congress, as a terror organization. And people say, well, how could you have a Hamas office here? What is that?
We have to go back to the root of this office. Like, why it's here in the first place. And Hamas office, when it was opened here in the first place, it was opened with full transparency and full consultation, and actually even request from the U.S. And
the U.S. asked you to put a Hamas office here?
They have asked us to open the channels with them and to have an established communication channel with the same case what was applied to Taliban as well. And look, at the end of the day, if you have a presence of someone in your country and you are engaging and talking, it doesn't mean that you are endorsing his ideas. It doesn't mean that you are supporting him.
Whoa.
The purpose of this office was to facilitate peace, to stabilize the region, and to make sure that always it's serving the purpose. And you can go through even everything all the events that happened in the recent 10 years since the office was officially opened here in Doha. How many peace deals been brokered from that office through that channel? Many of them. 2014 was the discussion and the negotiations was initiated here and ended in Egypt. In 2018, 2020 and 21, with all those escalations, and many of escalations that we avoided to prevent a war. There are plenty of them. You will lose count. Then, after...
Really? Okay. I guess we're getting
7th of October.
Oh, there we go.
The first hostage deal that released the hostages, the women and children, was 109, and the foreigners was 109 hostages. November 23 happened through that office. Second hostage deal, which we are going through right now, it was produced out of this office. So the office is a communication channel, and it doesn't make me, feeling shy that I speak with someone whom I have a disagreement with. President Trump spoke with North Korea. He didn't shy out of him. He met with him. He engaged with him. He wants to put an end for the conflict. He wants to make a deal with him. He's a deal maker. And this country basically is brokering deals.
Initially at the request of the U.S. government.
Yes.
Duh.
And it continued like everything that we did looked at it. But I'm confident that throughout the years that...
What the fuck, interwebs? I don't even have bars of death or anything like that. Just not cooperating.
Yeah, because homeboys over here spilling the beans, just telling you like it is. U.S. did it. U.S. funded it. U.S. wanted us to put a Hamas office here. U.S. at the request of the U.S. at the behest of the United States. And Tucker's like, the U.S. The U.S. told you to do that? The U.S. Yeah, nigga. Yeah, duh. Well, where have you been, Tucker? Oh, yeah, you do. I'm sure you know this. But, you're not paid to talk about that. Your government hates your guts. Shout out to Charlie Robinson. Your government hates your guts. They do this. They work with the perceived bad guys, the brown people, the towel heads. Look at his towel head. Look at that towel on his head. Yeah, that guy, that nigga's worth more than you can fucking imagine. His whole life is set up. His culture is not like yours. These niggas move like fucking bees. You move like fucking fat elephants, like MAGA elephants. Black pilled elephants, red pilled. If you're not into the pill, you're into. I don't care. It's like your government hates your guts, and they're running an operation right now. And in the meantime, they give you garbage. So enjoy. This nigga's over here telling you like it is. And by the way, use your Eric Prince phone to text Tucker 44055 for exclusive alerts.
Right.
I've been working under the leadership of the Emir. We are sure that every step we are taking, we are very transparent, coordinating with the US, and making sure that we are doing the right thing. So I have nothing wrong that I did that I am shying away from. I know
Don't
that
assassinate me, bro.
we have a lot of attacks, and unfortunately, we have attacks from the US legislation, like from the Congress many times, that although we did it at the request of the government. Yet, the Emir always tell me that if we are able to save a single life, it's worth everything. And I'll tell you something, we've been under a significant attack in the last 15 months during this war in Gaza. Unbelievable. No one would handle such an attack. And we worked tirelessly on achieving this deal. And the moment we went out to announce that deal being achieved, and we see the celebration in the streets, whether it's in Gaza or in Israel.
What the fuck?
That moment makes us forget everything.
Okay. Way to get into the broader Syria conversation than the debunking of one of the most heinous narratives around the Assad presidency, which was the Assad gassed his own people. The OPCW whistleblowers thoroughly debunked that. Dr. Pierce Robinson, friend of the show, has done extensive scholarship on further debunking that. And then last night's guest, James Corbett, put together another, here's how we blow a hole in this nonsense in under 5 minutes, little reel, like he did with September 11th.
On the morning of April 4th, 2017, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, on the verge of a military victory against the terrorist insurgency in his country and on the eve of peace talks that would secure his position as president, decided to use chemical weapons he didn't have against a target of no military significance in front of as many cameras as possible to cross the one red line that would ensure his own government's downfall. Soon after, the Academy Award-winning White Helmets, noted for their Oscar-worthy performances, persistent proximity to al-Qaeda, and financial dependence on U.S. aid, bravely risked their lives, handling Syrian victims barehanded against every protocol in the book. Without presenting a shred of evidence, President Donald Trump boldly launched a military strike against Shayrat Airfield because
national security interest,
promising to help the
beautiful babies.
Offer does not apply to babies in Gaza, Yemen, Pakistan, or basically anywhere else. That military strike, a volley of 59 Tomahawk land attack missiles of which 23 actually made it to the target, failed to take out a single runway or even keep the airbase from operating for even 24 hours, but was a complete success for ExxonMobil, Raytheon, and Donald Trump. No one could question the wisdom of striking Syria, except Donald Trump, and no one could oppose such a move, except Russia. The Trump train, still convinced by candidate Trump,
and by listening to guys like Lindsey Graham drop bombs here, drop bombs on Assad, drop bombs on ISIS. Oh, but they're fighting each other, so maybe we shouldn't do that.
And
so could you convince Putin to get Assad to step aside?
Well, they've been trying to do that. Could I? I don't think it's that important, to be honest with you. I think, frankly, let's say you get rid of Assad or you knock out that government. Who's going to take over? The people that were backing, and then you're going to have, like, Libya?
Concluded that this was seventh-dimensional backgammon to make China afraid of the U.S.'s willingness to spend $100 million in a fearsome show of failing to destroy a single airfield. Throughout the world, people rejoice as a horrible secular regime in the Middle East is replaced by yet another peace-loving band of ragtag human rights campaigners and child beheaders motivated by a desire to subdue the armies of Rome in an apocalyptic confrontation in Dabiq. The chemicals for the previous Red Line attack in Syria have since been proven to come from Libya with U.S. approval, but that's probably not relevant to this case. The CIA has released declassified report after declassified report showing that the plan to topple Syria's government has been in the works for decades, but this just shows that they were right all along. The mainstream media unquestioningly asserts that the story is true because the US government says so, but that's okay because we all know the MSM is full of unbiased truth tellers and dig hard to get the raw facts on every story.
We see these beautiful pictures at night from the decks of these two U.S. Navy vessels in the Eastern Mediterranean. I am tempted to quote the great Leonard Cohen, I'm guided by the beauty of our weapons, and they are beautiful pictures.
Even members of Congress think the story is a load of hogwash, but that's okay because they're probably crazy.
Because I don't think Assad would have done that. It does not serve his interests. It would tend to draw us into that civil war even further.
Who do you think is behind it? Who do you think is behind it?
Meanwhile, the White House has released a report on its intelligence about the chemical attack that refutes its own version of the story, but that's okay because when has the White House ever lied people into war? This man doesn't exist, and if you think he does, you're an enemy of humanity who should apologize for having been born. Likewise, him, her, him, and him and her. This is the 100% true story of the Syria strikes, and if you support sites like the Corbett Report that question it in any way, you are a moonbeam, fake news, tyrant-loving, hippie pinko Russian agent and should commit ritual suicide immediately. If you love your country and or liberty, NASCAR, supermodels, TV, water slides, or your mother, you will not question this story in any way. Ever. This message has been brought to you by the Friends of the Brookings Institute, Raytheon, Genie Oil, Oded Unknown, ICIASIS, and the New York Times. Because ignorance is strength.
Oh, fantastic. And just once again, if you missed last night's conversation with Corbett, you shame on you. Go watch that. It is Tuesday, which means it's T-Lab Tuesday, which means I am grateful to be joined by my good friend and brother, founder and co-host of The Last American Vagabond, Brian Cristian. How you doing, my friend?
Good, brother. Good morning. Well, shame on me because I didn't see it yesterday. So what's the conversation with Corbett? Did you have him on your show or did he put something out?
Yeah.
Nice. Good,
Yeah.
good, good.
And mostly to pimp the book, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's so fun. Was that you laughing in the background or was that on the recording? Yeah, I'm just doing the same thing. I'm like, God, it's just so. I mean, obviously, going back to like his like foundational 9/11 version of that, right? We just like wraps this thing up, like, and obviously that's just the quick version. Like, if you watch like his 3-part documentary, or it's just you can't. It's undeniable that it's proof, and we don't use that term lightly. And that is just like it's the Syria version. It's just crazy how. I mean, dumb it is. Like, it's obvious that you should laugh. Or he'll inserts like Spies Like Us, talk about the Russians and shows Dan Aykroyd. And, it's just funny because it's when I say on my show, this is worthy of ridicule. Like, that's stuff like that. Not that we should make fun of things we disagree with. It's like when something is just like embarrassingly wrong, it's worthy of ridicule and people are forcing it in. And he does such a great job on that, man. So always a shout out to Corbett. He is doing amazing work.
Yeah, the like dry Canadian snark.
Yeah, exactly.
It's perfectly timed. It really is. No, but I mean, Syria's devolved into that. They're claiming ceasefire right now, or joining.
Yeah, between U.S. and Israel proxies. Yeah, where the Kurds and all Kurds and Hayat al-Sham are agreeing to. That's why I used the image I did for the show yesterday. It's like. Here is the Netanyahu and Trump shaking hands, and then here, it's just, I mean, you realize out there listening, they've already admitted this like 40 times over, even with Ukraine. Like, it's now devolved into, well, obviously it's a proxy war. Well, that was a we're crazy for saying that 30 seconds ago point. Same thing here. These are proxy elements. So are ISIS, guys. So is Al-Qaeda. That's what these things are. These aren't secrets. These are provable points today. And so it's embarrassing to watch, which, by the way, the Kurds, which good, I guess good for them for holding in all this time. So they get dropped and screwed and left out. And then finally they get, at least it looks like they might get the promised Kurdistan part of this that the U.S. has always been dangling in front of them to get them to, be their lackeys, the SDF part, which was also packed with all sorts of other extremists. But then you got the Hayat al-Sham point, which that's the stupidest part in this. I mean, up after October 8th, when essentially the Assad fall was recognized, it was like what, like a week until they actually were like, okay, fine, like yank that bounty off his head. Like, he was literally even seen as a terrorist after that, and he wears a suit. And now we don't care. And what this is the craziest part for me is that now, I mean, that was not that long ago. And then Netanyahu comes out and says, like, we did this, we're responsible, because that's how these people play it. Like, he wants to take all the credit in the moment for the Assad gone, and then 10 seconds later is like, my God, look at all those extremists. This is why Muslims are bad. I'm like, yeah. Is anybody? I mean, you just told us that this is your responsibility, or the idea that we know that they've been backing them. And I went over like the 17 articles and Vanessa interviews. I'm going to be interviewing later today, by the way, to get caught up more on this, because she's one of the most immersed. Kevork and Eva and people like that really are on the pulse of this. But that we've talked about this in Idlib. How many times did we see the U.S. government like defending them trying to take back Idlib? That's where Hayat al-Sham was ultimately embedded, right? And they just they've cultivated this, they've grown it, and now they just let it go. And then last thing I'll say is that let's not forget how obvious it is that so the Western elements have fought a decade plus to save Syrians and put U.S. and all these resources to stop. And then all of a sudden, the moment it happens, what happens? Israel rushes in, builds bases, deploys troops, and they're even talking about settlements. Surprise, surprise. I mean, it's like, so that's either Israel taking what they were fighting for and the U.S. is too meek to say anything about it, or they've always been fighting Israel's wars. I think we know it's the latter. That's just provable at this point.
No, I agree, and all of the evidence stacks up towards we've been fighting Israel's war for them. All of it.
Yep.
The only conceivable exception to that is the oil theft that's gone to the U.S., but that could just be the cut that the U.S. is allowed to take in order to go fight Israel's war.
Here's an interesting thought, though, and this is where, like, Whitney has made many points about this over the years, and I think this is just logical to look at the idea that, you know, like a larger examples like the Great Reset, or rather specifically the COVID-19 lockstep point, where obviously you can't miss that all these adversaries were like, yes, we're in line together. We all agree this is where, you know, clearly there are points at which they come together. And I think that what you recognize is they're always willing to come together when it suits their interests, right? And that doesn't mean that they all necessarily agree with exactly what everyone was doing, but they go, yes, we'll tentatively, ostensibly go, yes, we're on board with this, so they can gain the power tools, not necessarily maybe do exactly what the U.S. did, and obviously have different opinions on certain things. So you can see that same thing. And so the point would be that you wonder whether or not Donald Trump, like, for example, him negotiating, which they're claiming is sort of like against what Israel wants with Hamas. Now, maybe that is even true. Maybe it's just him trying to negotiate for those Americans to win a small point for his base, or for the way he looks in the United States. And Israel's like, well, you know, maybe then they bothered them. But the point is that they're still both very much in line with the real agenda. You know, so you can wonder whether that might be part of this, where oil or whatever else was them just, they're there, right? They have power kinetically. They have military people on the ground just deciding to take it. And then like Israel does all the time, where they all do something and then Israel's the one that sweeps in and grabs it and takes the credit. You know, they do it all the time. So it could be either way, but it all makes sense, because obviously they're going to take what they want, and that would ultimately be something that can't be stopped because they're there. And you could also see how they could make an agreement for that. They're expending resources, but very clearly to see none of this is in the interest of the United States people, or the United States or its people. That's very clear. Everything they're doing like this has been expending resources, bad for their reputation. I mean, against international law, and it only benefits one entity. That's very clear. Unless you believe the absurd cartoon that they're fighting for freedom and stopping the bad guys, as they're the ones doing all the evil in the world. You know, it's kind of obvious.
Well, and to your earlier point,
you get my point. Go ahead.
About Israel. You know, they did, you know, they took credit for the overthrow of Assad, and then swooped in and said, oh, wait, no, these are Al-Qaeda terrorists. And this to me kind of speaks to an ongoing Greater Israel project, where they can now be like, oh, well, there's terrorists in the area.
Exactly.
And we need to protect ourselves from these rabid Al-Qaeda offshoot groups. And the only way that we can do that is by establishing permanent bases in the Syrian Golan. And we've got to go ahead and overthrow Damascus. And, you know, it seems really obvious to me.
I mean, it is. Let's be clear. It doesn't seem obvious. It is obvious. The facts are undeniable, right? So here, the crazy part is they feel they can, and maybe they can. I mean, shit, look at what's happening. Even when we all see it, it seems like nothing matters to stop it anyway. But they think they can just go, you know, we did this, we funded them. And let's not forget, the Biden administration gave them money to ultimately effectively carry this out. Why isn't Elon Musk or the Republicans screaming about that? I mean, it's so funny how they're willing to stand up like the Loomers and the insurrection Barbies and go, look at all the evil Muslims. And this is why yesterday she literally said, this is why Muslims shouldn't be in Congress. I'm like, you are such a ridiculous person. It's like, you can't even hide. It's just so gross. Everything about them is ridiculous. But the point is that clearly they want to make it about the evil Muslims, right? And so there's this effort to do so. But ultimately, I think I just lost where I was starting there. But, you know, same point is that it's obvious that this is fundamentally, that was the point is, why wouldn't they go, Biden funded this? What a low-hanging fruit example to go after the Democrats. But I think it's because if you start poking at that, it's very easy to see, well, so did Trump, and so did Obama, and so did they all, you know? And so they just kind of leave it alone, but they just think they can go, let's use it both ways. This is typical Israeli propaganda, right? This was the one that I thought was the most absurd. This is this is directly from the Israel account.
Oh, I gotta drop that down. Okay, there we go.
Which, I mean, look at that. They're using the actual picture of Jelani that they had on his bounty after he took over power, right? $10 million. And the suit that they put him in, and clearly Israel was involved with all of this. I mean, this guy is an asset. I mean, I was just listening to Kevork and Patrick Henningsen. They both they both agree the evidence is clear that he is likely Mossad and CIA, rather the intelligence from both, and the evidence is really deep. Any idea they come out and say jihadists in suits are still jihadists? They put him in a fucking suit, right? I mean, so they're doing this and then using that. I mean, it's the same point. It's just so transparent. I mean, I believe that most people are aware of this, who are even remotely paying attention to any of it, because this is surface level conversation. Like, these were headlines before this happened, and now these are headlines saying something different. So people are seeing it. You know, I mean, the question is to what level people allow themselves to acknowledge the obvious, because a lot of people tend to go, that can't be true. Like, what I'm seeing and proving, it just can't make sense because I can't wrap my mind around that, you know, and that's kind of an Orwellian aspect of it. But talk about crazy, man. I mean, this is just, we need to invent a new word for how crazy this is.
But we kind of started off a little bit talking about the Power Rangers, and here you go. Here it is.
Things blow my mind. They basically just took footage from a show called Super Sentai, and then they just said, well, we want to make it American. Everything where they are Power Rangers was already filmed, and it's already from another show. Wow. And the only things that they filmed were the scenes where they were teenagers without their stuff on.
Seriously.
The Yellow Ranger in Super Sentai was a male.
Okay.
Which is why the Pink Ranger has a skirt, but the Yellow Ranger doesn't, is because the Yellow Ranger was a male in the original Super Sentai series. But then in America, they're like, well, let's do a girl. But they still had to use the stock footage that came to them. In fact, to the point where the action scenes that were from Super Sentai series, they're English voice dubbed over it. So like Rita Repulso was not speaking English. Someone was just dubbing a voiceover. And you know how they would get in their machine, they'd be like, we're going to do cool stuff. And they'd have their arms going all the crazy.
Super hand motion.
It was just all overdubs from the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. It's always weirder than you thought it was going to be. Whatever it's always weirder. It's just somehow there's weirdness. Yeah, every time. Look into anything. It's just fucking weird. Yeah.
My girl sent me that because she was, you know, listening in, whatever.
Yeah, that shit blew my mind. It's like, oh my God, I had no idea.
The whole thing is a fucking lie. With Buckethead.
Yeah, that's hilarious. It's a bunch of gimmicks vying for attention. That's just what the species has come to. Gimmicks vying for attention.
Buckethead also did the soundtrack for the Mortal Kombat movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Damn.
Yeah.
Got talent.
Oh no, he's incredibly talented. He is. I saw this yesterday and I was like, they don't actually even explain what it is. But this is so weird that I figured we would have to play it. So I'm not even going to provide context. I'm just going to bring it up. The Crown Prince of the Diddle.
This man is the Crown Prince of the Diddle, a champion among champions whose prowess at the diddle has won him many international diddling awards. Davy Glenn was an undisputed champ until he retired from full-time diddling a few years ago. Well, today Davy's back, coming out of retirement to compete in the Kinross International World Diddling Championship, the Golden Rose of diddling. Now tell me about diddling. How did it start?
Well, diddling must have started, really, when the first kiddie was on its mother's knee.
In the world of diddling, this is inside the Holy of Holies, the Kinross Town Hall, where each year the World Diddling Championships are held. A large crowd of diddling enthusiasts are here to cast a critical ear over every diddle. Annie Bell, twice World Diddling Champion, is a lady who knows a diddle or two.
I like to have the thing going on all the time. The diddling part must be continued.
Are diddlers made or are they born, basically?
Well, I would say they're born.
Are they?
Yes, definitely.
In a few minutes now, we'll know. The hall, as you can see, packed solid with people wanting to know who's going to be the 1974 World Diddling Champion.
The winner is Davy Glenn with 62 out of 70.
And Davy Glenn makes a comeback. And so the crowd greets the 1974 World Diddling Champion, Davy Glenn.
Okay, what is happening? What?
I don't even know what's happening, Teace. I don't.
What is diddling? Who gives a shit? What is it? Like, is it a real thing? Is this entire thing like a Wes Anderson joke that they just took historical footage to and dubbed with AI? What the fuck is happening right now?
I'm not even sure, man. I'm not. I saw it. I thought it was fucking crazy. I thought we could run it. Hot, cold relationship with Aaron Monte. There's a lot of stuff that he does that I don't agree with. There's some stuff that he does that I think is exemplary. And because I like to highlight the exemplary stuff, this is a pretty fun exchange as far as that goes.
But I got to say, Rabbi Shmuley, you don't speak for me. Accusing people like my friend Omar of anti-Semitism simply because he wants the freedom of his people. It saddens me to see what people like you have done to the Jewish tradition. The suffering of my family, my great-grandparents perished in the Holocaust, they were murdered by the Nazis. And today, I have to tell you, I see you as the modern day followers of the Nazis, supporting this mass murder campaign in Gaza, putting the people of Gaza in what even Israelis have called a concentration camp. It's the Israeli Jews of today, supported by American Jews, unfortunately, some, that are following in the footsteps of our oppressors. And I hope one day you can connect to your own humanity and the very best of your own tradition, which I believe in, to see just how horrible this modern state, this modern supremacist state, is not only for the Palestinians,
You
but the
can't
Jewish
seriously,
people as
Aaron,
well.
you can't seriously be saying that Rabbi Shmuley, one of the most high-profile Jews in the world, is a successor to the Nazis.
Is a Nazi.
I mean, that's a pretty
I am saying
despicable.
that.
That's a pretty despicable thing to say, isn't it?
He supports the mass murder of children in a concentration camp. What else am I supposed to?
May I
People
respond
being
to that?
put
May I
under a
respond to that?
I think you should
starvation
respond to that.
These
Yeah.
are Nazi tactics.
Aaron,
These are Nazi tactics.
Aaron, notice I have not once offended, used that hominem attacks against Omar or you. I have decided that I'm going to be
That's not true.
factual. No,
You called
excuse
him
me. You
anti-Semite.
won't interrupt me.
Calling people
Omar started
anti-Semites is apparently not an ad hominem.
excuse me. Omar started calling me a liar. He wouldn't deal with any facts, a hypocrite. He said I'm drunk on lies, et cetera, et cetera. That's what we call ad hominem, personal attacks. I've seen it whenever, and I debate everybody because I like Pierce, and this is why I love this show. I'm also a free speech absolutist. The person you just called a Nazi spent the past year with his friend Ron Dermer, who was condemned by Adam Boehler because of our close relationship from my years as rabbi at Oxford. He was my student president. And Bobby Kennedy Jr., the new HHS Secretary of Health and Human Service, saving 200 Palestinian children who had cancer. Hamas would not let them go to an Israeli hospital because they would kill their families if Israeli hospitals treated them. Shaare Tzedek or Sheba Medical, all of whom agreed to take them. We had to take them to St. Jude's Hospital in Amman. And I helped get them out. And the reason why the Israeli military wanted the kids out, but not their accompanying attendants, is that so many of them were terrorists pretending to be an uncle, a grandfather, that's other terrorist. But I helped arrest. A few of them died. It was terrible. I think we saved 173. But I want to say something to you, Aaron, if I may, respectfully. I believe what you just said about me as a Jew, comparing me to a Nazi, will live in ignominy, respectfully, on your resume forever and ever and ever. I think you have now permanently undermined any and all semblance, iota, molecule, atom of credibility. Because if you can compare me, if you can.
Did Steve disappear again?
No, I'm here. I'm
Okay.
here. What were you saying?
Oh, I wasn't saying anything. I mean, I don't know. What's yeah.
Let me add extra words to the thing that I'm saying. Iota, molecule, speck, granule, perhaps some sort of dot. Speck. I'm almost out of words. at this point, but you're very, very despicable. And I would like to call you other names, but I will not be invited back on the Piers Morgan show if I do.
It's like, it's too bad because anytime you get into conversation, I'm just wondering how much people are able to hear what the fuck another person is saying when it's clear that you're contending reality itself. You know, it's like I do that, like that Shmuley talking about his alleged charitable endeavor to try and spare Gazan children from the horrors. You know, it's like, you got to wonder how much is that something that, like, is he pure evil and just kind of puts out there as a philanthropic sidestep while lusting in the joy of the ongoing genocide? Is that the actual impetus of what's going on? Or does he himself actually believe that he's a good guy doing the right thing in uncomfortable circumstances? And that's one of those things where it's really difficult to definitively ascertain because they're so fucking echo chamber entrained from birth to view reality a certain way that it's just one of those things where it's like, so how much can people who are contending reality even fucking hear one another at all? It's one of those questions that jumps to my mind when I watch something like that.
Yeah. I think Shmuley knows exactly what he is and what he's doing.
Oh yeah.
And I think he knows that he's genocidal Chabadist.
Yeah, no, totally. I do too. But you know what I mean insofar as like the encompassing framework in which these archetypes of hatred are groomed so that for people like him, he can thrive in that environment. But then there are the other people who kind of go along with him and to enable him because they actually buy into the bullshit. So it's like that entire encompassing brush of, yeah.
Wow.
Personalities.
I can't invoke the Shmuel without doing this. Shout out to Foundering. I got to try to get this guy on the show. He's hilarious.
If I were Rabbi Shmuley and diddle-diddle-diddle-digga-digga-diddle-diddle-dum, all day long I'd diddle little bums. If I were a Shmuley man, I'd peddle all my dildos, dreidel dildos, selling dildos with my daughter and her mum. If I were a Jewish Shmuley man, I'd be digging with a dildo in my bum. I'd wear a grotesque nose and go grab some goyim right on the nipple with a pinch. A Shabbos lap dance brace for the youngest mensch. The books I'd sell would tell how all you fellas are jealous of Jewish sexual appeal. Meanwhile, I'd count the shekels that I'd steal. It's white supremacy when you are questioning me on the USS Liberty. Genocide's just fine when you're the chosen kind. I'd get a pass on calling Candace a nigger, a bigger gefilte fish to fry. I'd know why Michael Jackson had to die. Why, if I were Rabbi Shmuley, diddle-diddle-diddle-digga-digga-diddle-diddle-dum. All day long I'd shalom in your home. If I were a Shmuley man, I'd go full kosher Kama Sutra. Dreidel dildo tunnel digging with a dildo in my bum. Lord, who made the Gentile and the Jew? Of course he'd make me superior to you. Gleefully I'd be squealing on our scheme to remove Christ the King from everything. If I were a Shmuley man.
I love that dude.